There we go. Okay. We are live. Hello. And welcome to the 5th of the BookTube live shows. I have 3 returning guests with me who are all going to introduce themselves. This is the Marvel episode of BookTube Live. So I'm really excited to dive in and talk about all things Marvel. But before we do that, we're going to have our guests introduce themselves with their name, their channel name, their favorite non-MCU film, and their favorite MCU character. So it's a lot, but I think it's a good way to sort of kick off the discussion and get to know the lovely people who are here talking all things Marvel with me today. So whoever wants to start, go ahead, and I'll go last.
Steve, you can go.
Okay, fine, I'll go then. Hello, everybody. I am once again Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome. Gabby, thank you very much for having me come back. I really am looking forward to this. I think the funniest thing was the entire day I was trying to figure out what am I going to wear, because I have so many Marvel characters on various t-shirts. So I decided to go with an MCU character. I've got Spider-Man right over here with his, as the MCU characters call them, his Peter Tingle, and that's a character in the background who I'm hoping will show up in future Spider-Man films. Of course, that's Venom. My channel is The Lawn Gnome. My favorite non-MCU film is one that many people can debate me on, but it is the 2005 Tim Story Fantastic Four. I am a huge Fantastic Four fan. This movie may be campy as hell. It does star Chris Evans, though, ironically, but it really is a fun, family-oriented comic book film. That's what the Fantastic Four is all about. My favorite MCU character is Captain America, because a history lesson for some of you out there, Captain America is a Marvel character before the MCU that was given a truly bad raw end of the stick. I don't know if any of you out there even saw the 1990 film that was called Captain America. It was terrible. Fair warning there. But ever since this universe started coming together and the Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige gave us finally a perfect embodiment of Captain America, I'm just so glad that he is now one of the most popular characters in Marvel, whether it's film or comics, because he should be. He really is a true wholesome icon in comic books.
Bridget, yeah, you go.
Okay, I'm Bridget. I'm from B Books, and my favorite non-MCU film. I really had a hard time. I decided on top 2, with Deadpool and then Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds is just so funny, and like he was made for that character. Like it is so good. And then Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse honestly doesn't get like the viewership that it deserves, since it's like a cartoon and like animated and everything, and it just does such a wonderful job of like showing all the different versions of Spider-Man that there are, and just like all the different art styles is fantastic, and it's wonderful. And then my favorite MCU character was rough as well, but I decided on Tony Stark because he has such a great arc throughout the course of the MCU, and they just did such a wonderful job creating his character and like building him up throughout all of the films, and he was just such a prevalent part of it that like I felt the need to choose him.
Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man.
Yeah,
Facts.
My name's Rachel. My channel is Reads with Rachel. My favorite non-MCU film is Deadpool. I love Deadpool. And my favorite MCU character is Peter Quill. I just love Star-Lord so much. I love him. He will always be my favorite. I don't care that he screwed everything up in Avengers. I don't care. I love Peter Quill.
That was my like one catching point, was like he was like up there for like one of my favorites as well.
Chris Pratt's awesome. I love him in that role. He really is.
I love the first like 20 seconds of him in that movie as Star-Lord. I was like, this is it. This is
with just him dancing around.
This is my favorite MCU character.
Gabby?
Gabby, what's next?
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh, she said she might be having some technical difficulties.
Oh, I didn't even hear that.
I just saw it's on the live chat.
Okay.
I just want to let you both know, because you both mentioned Deadpool. I'm also a very big Deadpool fan.
I wanted to mention that I loved the the Fantastic Four. I watched that when I was little, and it was just, wow. I loved it. It was like my favorite movie. I wanted all of their powers.
No, they really, that's why I'm so excited for this new wave of Marvel films now that the MCU has the Fantastic Four and the X-Men, and we're going to get more characters. We're going to get more great Spider-Man stories. There's so many great, iconic stories from these specific franchises that you can turn into excellent films. I mean, they're already basically saying that the big baddie of the next wave is going to be Doctor Doom. And I'm like, oh yeah, come on. If you're bringing in the Fantastic Four, you got to bring in Doctor Doom. But I'm also hoping that, okay, something happened.
Gabby, are you back?
I'm back.
Woo!
Our fearless leader returned.
Gabby?
Are you okay?
There.
How's it going?
Oh no. Wow.
Well,
Molly.
you can just keep going, you know.
Yeah, we can keep talking. No, I mean, I also am just excited because, you know, we could finally hopefully get a decent coming of Galactus, and we'll get the Silver Surfer and all that stuff as well.
I'm excited because, like, now we get to see so many more stories come to the screen, like, be built into the whole universe that they've already created, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I know.
I'm excited to see how they integrate, like, the X-Men and everything with what they've already done.
Yeah, but the only thing that's going to be... I'm sorry.
Molly in the chat said Peggy Carter was robbed, and I totally agree with that.
No, I actually did watch the TV show, and I really thought that it was great. You know, I thought it was a very
but then, like, I feel like they just, like, brought her in at the end. Didn't she, like, marry someone at the end of the TV show? And, like, she was, like, happy. And then they just forgot about that movie. And they were like, okay, and now she's back with Steve.
And they also put...
Hi.
Okay, you're back.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, I think I was having some internet issues because I was trying to also pull up, like, another screen from the computer. And I think my internet is just so terrible I wasn't able to do both. So I'm going to see if I can fix that. But...
Okay, well, it is your turn, so we'll just wait right here for you.
Yes. Okay. So, well, on that note, it's not necessarily entirely important. Hello, everyone. My name is Gabby. This is my channel, Gabby Y Books. Thank you so much for joining me. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I live out in the suburbs. My internet is terrible. I'm learning to deal with what I have. So I thank you for sticking with me through that. My favorite Avengers character or Marvel character just in general is obviously Captain America. I think my header makes that very obvious. I just think Chris Evans does such a good job, and he's such an interesting character in terms of just his arc throughout the entire MCU. I think he also just gets so many good moments in the films, especially like when you get to Endgame. Like there's so much good content there that makes his character really, really fun. But I have to say that if I were to pick any follow-up characters who are also very close for me, I love Loki. I love Tom Hiddleston. I think he does a good job portraying that character. I also love Bucky Barnes as the Winter Soldier. Yes. They're just such good characters. And I love them because they're anti-heroes. So there's something interesting about them. Like they're like these morally gray characters that makes them very fun. And then my favorite non-MCU movie is probably Into the Spider-Verse, which Bridget brought up. I just watched it recently, and I was so impressed with the graphics and the visuals. It was just stunning.
It's beautiful.
And it was just a lot of fun to watch. I was also really surprised by the cast, like looking who was in that film and the way that like all the characters were portrayed. The music and the like soundtrack for the movie was also really great. It was just such a fun time, and I'm so sad that I didn't watch it sooner because it is so good. I'm also looking at some of the comments here about Peggy Carter and Scarlet Witch that Molly is commenting, and I will say that I agree to both of those things to sort of pull them up here. And I know that was a discussion that you probably had.
Well, I've got some things that they have said about Scarlet Witch later on. Trust me, there's some good things that they can do with Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
Yes. So now we're going to dive in and discuss our thoughts on the MCU films. So I developed a tier ranking, and I pretty much ranked the films like 1 through 23, and then I split them up. I am going to see if I can grab my laptop and try to pull it up through there so we can specifically look at it. So if you guys want to talk amongst yourself really quickly, and I will be right back and see if I can do that.
Sure.
Definitely. I will definitely say a couple of things later on about Scarlet Witch because I don't know if I'll ever get Disney Plus, but one of the things that I am hoping for is that if Disney's smart, they'll put these streaming shows onto Blu-ray at some point in time. Because if I am seriously sure about it, if they're going to do WandaVision the way that I hope they do WandaVision, they can probably foreshadow an awesome story for later on.
Right.
An awesome story, I mean. I'm telling you.
Okay. So I will start off this by saying that the film that's ranked last for me that I think we can probably all agree on is The Incredible Hulk. I have that at 23. I just think
I have Thor: The Dark World at 23 and The Incredible Hulk at 22, but like both of those are like they're down there.
Interesting, because Thor: The Dark World is actually like way higher up for me.
Really?
I personally don't hate that film. Yeah, I don't know why. I like enjoyed it. I think like a lot of the Loki moments in it are what get me because, like I said, Loki is one of my favorite characters.
Oh no, I love Loki, but I don't
and
think
I think his moments saved that film for me. Yeah, I mean that's fair.
Oh man, wow! You guys, you just shot me in the heart right there. Incredible Hulk is in my top 10.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
No way!
First of all, what I do need to make clear here, and this is not to make anyone feel bad, but I have gone to see every single MCU film since Iron Man. I've seen them all on the big screen. I'm an old fart, so of course I had the ability to do so. But the reason why I liked The Incredible Hulk so much was not because of the fact that I'm a huge Edward Norton and Tim Roth fan, but considering the fact that I had to compare it to the 2003 Ang Lee film starring Eric Bana, and that is one that I dare not speak of much anymore. The reason why I like this one is because it really felt like it was a much better film. I appreciated the fact that they also paid a lot of homage to the Hulk television show from the late 70s and 80s. But quite frankly, the reason why that movie was so impactful for people who were starting to see this world unfold was the fact that we actually saw Robert Downey Jr. in the post-credit scenes come in and talk about them putting a team together. So there was a wafting excitement in there. And again, I rewatched all these films recently. I still love The Incredible Hulk. My number 23 is Iron Man 2. That movie is a hot mess.
That is my number 20. It's also down there, yeah.
Okay,
that movie is a hot mess. It's so terrible compared to what the first one gave us.
I agree.
Okay.
I felt so bad for Mickey Rourke.
Okay, my internet's terrible, so the laptop's not going to work either. We're just struggling here a little bit.
Okay, we can just talk about it.
I think we can just talk about it. Because the visual isn't entirely too necessary. It was just like a blank Google Doc and honestly wasn't even that pretty either. So, okay. I think if we want to, we can just sort of go and read off each of our like rankings. So for me, I had
you want to do it in like the tiers?
Yeah, sure. So like the way that I split up my tiers is I did it from like 16 to 23. From 9 to 15 and then like 1 to 8. And so I think we like started each one. I just did that as a way of breaking it up so that it's like a clear, like, divide. So I guess we can go like around and take turns reading it off. So for me, I'll start. I have The Incredible Hulk at 23. I have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 at 22. I have
Wow.
That's gonna be a hot take. I knew that was gonna be one of the things we were gonna be talking about. I have Iron Man 3 at 21, Iron Man 2 at 20, Doctor Strange at 19, Ant-Man and the Wasp at 18, Thor at 17, and Iron Man at 16. So that's mine. I think we read all of them off and then we can come back and discuss. So
oh god, I'm next. Okay. Just to let Bridget know, I watch your videos, so you're gonna castrate me when you hear my lower levels. I have Iron Man 2 at number 23, Thor Ragnarok at 22, Guardians Volume 2 at 21, Iron Man 3 at 20, Avengers Age of Ultron at 19, Thor the Dark World at number 18, Captain America Civil War at number 17, and Captain Marvel at 16.
Well, okay, whoa. This is I didn't realize how intense this was gonna get. Okay, we're gonna Bridget, your turn. We're just gonna
at 23, I had Thor the Dark World. At 22, I had The Incredible Hulk. At 21, Avengers Age of Ultron. 20, Iron Man 2. 19, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. 18, Iron Man 3. 17, Doctor Strange. And 16, Ant-Man.
Okay.
There wasn't too much tea there.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I didn't do this, so I'm doing this off the top of my head. I'm just going to be honest.
Go for it.
You're good.
Okay, so 23, Incredible Hulk. 22, Ant-Man and the Wasp. I hated that movie. It was terrible. 21, Thor Dark World. 20, Iron Man 3. 19, Iron Man 2. 18, Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I love Peter Quill, but I hate that movie.
I concur.
Yeah. Avengers Age of Ultron, I guess, would be 17. And then Avengers Endgame would be 16.
Oh, wow.
You know what? I'm not going to be, I'll tell you the truth. I'll go into that a little later. I'm not surprised that Endgame is low for you because, like I said, I'll explain. It's not in my top 10 either, that's for sure.
And it's really not for
It's barely in my top 10.
It's not for any character reason. It's just I hated the time traveling thing. I just thought it was a
Yes.
I don't like it.
That's fair. Okay, so if we're talking about like big explosive things, for me, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, I'm gonna say one of the reasons why I have it ranked so low is because of the 2 times that I've seen that movie, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 was the first Marvel film I ever saw when I was like in 8th grade. There was a movie screening of it at my library and me and a few of my friends went and I watched like half of it and then left like through the other half and was just like hanging out in the library with my friends. So I like didn't even get to see it a full time when I did watch it. And then when I went back and like decided I'm going to watch all the MCU films, I'm going to prioritize this. I had to, I think, watch it. Like I watched it in the mornings before I left for school. And so I was like pausing it. And I didn't like sit through all of it. But I guess there was a part of me that like when I was watching it just didn't feel interested like in what it was that was going on. Like I didn't feel like there was a lot of like reason for me to care about the characters, the things they were going through. And for me, I personally liked Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 more than the first one because I think there's more reasons to care about the characters. Like Yondu is a character that I feel like in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, like you have no reason to care about him at all. But then like come into the second film, like he gets this whole story and you have Baby Groot. I feel like there's just a lot more like moments there for me that I really enjoyed. But yeah, for me, Volume 1 was like not one of my favorites. And it would just not be one of the films that I would reach to like go if I wanted to rewatch any Marvel movies for just,
okay.
Because I think, yeah, but I feel like I should sit down and like try to watch it all in one sitting and see if that changes anything for me. Because I haven't been able to do that.
Like put it all together, yeah.
Yeah. So I need to do that. I think that's a large part of one of the reasons why it is where it is. It's just because of the viewing experience I had with it.
Okay, that makes sense.
I feel like the rest of mine aren't really like that explosive.
Steve, why is Thor Ragnarok so low?
Yes, let's talk about that because that's in mine top.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get the easy ones out of the way with explanations, and then I'll go into the other ones a little bit deeper. Like I said, Iron Man 2 is a hot mess. Guardians 2 does have some very good moments, but there's a lot of parts that are just flat out boring. And I also wish that they could have done a little bit more with Kurt Russell as Ego. I mean, this is a character that I actually know. And the interesting thing about Yondu is the post-credit scenes, because Yondu is one of the original Guardians of the Galaxy from 1969. Not that many people know that that comic book came out such a long time ago and that there were so many different lineups. But if you remember the post-credit scene where Sylvester Stallone's character, whose name is actually Starhawk, is talking to a couple of other characters, that's the original Guardians lineup. So that's something that not that many people actually know. So I'm hoping in Volume 3 they will be back, because to see Starhawk and Charlie 27 and Martinez, that would just be really cool. I know I'm throwing out names that nobody knows, but hopefully when 3 comes out, you all will know who they are. Iron Man 3, again, I didn't like what they did with the story in general. I hated the whole thing with the Mandarin. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Sir Ben Kingsley. He's one of the greatest actors. But to pull off the crap that they did with that for a plot twist, and now the fact that we had to wait for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings to see the real Mandarin, because that's Iron Man's arch nemesis.
Do you
Why
think part of that has to do, because I think this was something I was thinking about when I was watching the movies for the first time, because I rented them off of Amazon, and like with Amazon movies, if you rent them, there's like little factoids or things that will like pop up on the side if you're reading, if you're like watching the movie. And there was something like popped up for me that had me like thinking about this a little bit with the Iron Man films. I feel like they got sort of like Kevin Feige'd a little bit. Like Jon Favreau, I feel like had his own intentions with like what he wanted the Iron Man films to be, but then obviously like those films were sort of used to set up the Avengers, and I feel like once Jon Favreau stepped out, because he did not direct Iron Man 3 if I'm correct, and he was barely in it as he was barely in it as Happy. Like I think he was in a coma for the entirety of the movie or most of it, that he pretty much like stepped out of it, that I was like, yeah, naturally this like isn't going to be very great, because you have a change of director and you're trying to wrap up.
Right. Okay. So Avengers Age of Ultron, all filler and no thriller. It's just a stop point. It's a big gap. And I didn't like the fact that James Spader, who voiced Ultron, made Ultron more human than the Avengers themselves in that movie. Very upset about that. Thor: The Dark World is fun. I think that movie has Tom Hiddleston's best in it. He has some excellent moments, especially when he shapeshifts into Captain America. I can watch that thing every day of the week. But I also love the post-credit scene, because the post-credit scene was the very first time we learned about the Infinity Stones, or the original name is the Infinity Gems. I actually have the original Infinity War comic books, so that's basically that, but that's another story. Captain America Civil War, read the comic. It is completely different, and I hated the airport scene. It was action-packed, yes. Spider-Man, it was great to see him, but you don't joke during a battle like that. You do not joke. It's supposed to be serious. Captain Marvel, fun movie, basically was overhyped, saying you were supposed to go see this movie before you saw Endgame. There really was no reason for you to see it, but it was still good. It was fun. I loved all the 90s nostalgia. Samuel L. Jackson was awesome. The cat was the best part of the whole movie. But I just wish that we would have gotten... And the other thing was, it plays upon the Kree versus Skrull war, which is in the comic books. And I wanted more of that. I really, really did. And I think we're going to get more of that. So, the $1 million question. Why is Thor Ragnarok so low? I'm not a fan of Taika Waititi, and I think he butchered the movie.
Okay, I think we need to throw hands.
I don't like the fact that movie was 80% ad-libbed. I didn't like the fact that Thor was turned into a joke. Thor is a serious character. Okay, I'm coming at this from a fan's perspective, someone who actually read comic books. Not saying that there's any reason why you guys shouldn't love it. Not saying that just because you don't read comic books, that doesn't make you any less of a fan. I respect everyone who likes what they like. But when a person like myself comes in and sees a character like Thor, can I use foul language, please?
I think... Like for
I
me,
thought that he was pussified.
I think like for me with Thor Ragnarok, initially when I watched it, I was like, okay, like a lot of this is very comedic. Like I think there could have been more moments where you could have had like that seriousness. But like I watched Taika Waititi do Jojo Rabbit, which he won an Oscar for. So like
I know. I'm so glad he got it.
Like that was one of the things that like I wanted to see from him, because that movie has like lots of comedic moments, but there is like a moment where it really packs a punch, and I like would have liked to have seen that with Thor Ragnarok, because I don't think you got enough moments for that movie to like really like have serious moments, but I still think it was really fun. I just think the problem is like you have the first Thor film and the second Thor film, which are very like Shakespearean, and then you have this sudden shift, and so I think that's something that's kind of weird for some people.
The funny thing is, like, my wife and I, we go to see all these movies together. Did we laugh? Yes. I mean, I love the line, I know we know each other, he's a friend from work, will always go down as one of the funniest moments in Marvel history. But we both walked out of that movie thinking that movie did not take itself seriously. And compared to the lineage of Marvel films that we got, we just don't like the fact that characters like these just get turned into comedies. I just didn't think that it needed to be a comedy. I don't know how I'm going to feel about Thor Love and Thunder. I'm excited because Beta Ray Bill is going to be in the cast, as well as Christian Bale playing somebody. I'm excited to see who he's playing, but that's it. I can't go any further. Those are my thoughts.
Okay. Bridget, go ahead.
So I'll discuss my opinions on Thor Ragnarok when I get there. I had some negative opinions. I didn't like the hella plot, but we'll get there when we get there. Because that's further on in my obviously, because I have it way higher up. But I love Taika Waititi. He is my favorite director. But okay, 23 Thor Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok is. I really like Loki. He's a great character. However, I don't think the movie does a good job just like pulling it all together for like a cohesive story. Like it felt kind of off. The Incredible Hulk. I respect the origins, however, I don't think, like, it just doesn't really fit into the MCU, and then, like, with the character change, it doesn't, like, mesh well, and I haven't seen it in a while, to be honest, but, like...
Also, think about, like, Edward Norton as the Hulk, and then Mark Ruffalo, and, like, seeing the direction that the MCU went in, specifically, like, with Thor Ragnarok, there's, like, no way Edward Norton could have done that. I just, like, it was necessary for Mark Ruffalo, so, like...
That's very true.
Yeah, and then Age of Ultron, I agree that there wasn't much there. Like, they did introduce a lot there, but, like, they didn't have as much of, like, an effect as, like, I think it could have. It could have gone, like, bigger, I think. And then Iron Man 2 and 3, it wasn't good. And then it wasn't good. They didn't do it. Iron Man 1, I thought was really good, and then Iron Man 2 and 3, I don't know what they were doing. Yeah. And then Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, I agree. There are some fantastic moments. I love so much of like the Yondu scenes and just like seeing the characters bonding and everything. But I think the Eagle plotline was like really weakly done. And I think they could have utilized that way more to make it more effective. Like I feel like it was too easy of like a solution. And then Doctor Strange, I love that movie. I've seen it so many times. Like it's a fantastic movie. However, it's just so much of it, I don't know if like the impact is the same. Like I love from like 19 to like 1, I'm like, these are all solid movies. So I just think that Doctor Strange doesn't stand, like if you're going to compare it to other Marvel films, I don't think it's as like impactful and as like deep of a movie, but it's like a really fun thing to watch. Like the effects are amazing. And then Ant-Man, I love him with all my heart. He's fantastic. Paul Rudd. I was gonna say Mark Ruffalo, but Paul Rudd. Wow, sorry, my brain's all over the place. But Paul Rudd, what a man! I love him, and I think he does a fantastic job. It's a fun movie, but I think it's a good introduction for his character, but I don't think it's a standout movie. Yeah.
Okay.
There was nothing super surprising in mine, I don't think.
So am I supposed to talk about all of them? Because really...
You don't have to. I did it for mine just because I was like, meh. But I'm probably going to talk more about all of them once I get higher up.
I agree.
So Incredible Hulk, I just thought was boring. I just didn't like it. I'm not a huge Edward Norton fan. I never have been. So I didn't really like it. Ant-Man and Wasp. That's objectively terrible. Thor Dark World. I just feel like Thor was not the star of that movie, despite it being called Thor Dark World. It was the Loki show. And not that I didn't love that, because I love Loki, but it might as well just have been a Loki movie.
Yeah, I think the beginning for me is kind of rough, but like the minute that Loki gets out of prison and you like have like him get involved in all the shenanigans is the minute that movie gets good. And I think there's like some good comedic-ish moments as like the fight goes on that like it was bearable for me. Like it was one of the ones that I would like go back and rewatch. At least that's my assessment is like how I ranked these.
Yeah, and I feel like Jane was the stronger character in that movie versus Thor. So why was it called Thor when Jane and Loki were clearly the stars in that movie? Like, what the fuck?
Well, clearly it's to foreshadow the fact that Jane will be Lady Thor.
I mean, I don't think that was decided at that point, though.
I don't know. As far as I knew, they had the whole story planned out.
Leave the MCU because of and then come back because of sexism issues. I think that happened. Also, speaking of sexism, please don't use the term pussified because it like degrades.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I think that if you feel that way, you should probably describe what you're feeling as like this is how Thor was in this, and then this is why you feel like his character got
My apologies.
It's okay. I feel like it wasn't a Thor movie. He didn't star in it. Like Jane was so much better than him in that movie. So I just don't really understand why they made it Thor: The Dark World. They might as well have made her Lady Thor at that point and just made that her movie. And then Loki was so good in that. I mean, that's some of the best Loki scenes come from that movie.
For sure.
Him turning into Captain America is like iconic.
And I like love the fact that came back in Endgame because then like now it's canon that he did that before, like that was his second time doing that rather than his first, which I thought was fun.
Yes. I feel like Loki like stepped up in that movie and then they saw that people loved that and that's why Thor Ragnarok ended up being how Thor Ragnarok was because they were like, oh, people like that. So then they did that with Thor. And then, oh man, Iron Man 3 and 2 were just, oh my God, I
garbage.
So bad. What happened from Iron Man 1? It was so
I don't know.
And then Iron Man 2 and 3,
they were like, it was set up.
We're never going to know.
Why?
We're never going to know.
Heartbreak. So bad.
I agree, 100%.
So bad, right?
Yeah.
And then Guardians of the Galaxy 2, basically everything Steve said. There was so much that they could have done with so many characters, and it was just, it just sucked. I hated it. I was so mad because that's one of my top, and Peter Quill's my favorite. So the fact that I hate a movie that Peter Quill's in is so upsetting. And then Avengers Ultron, just so disappointing. The only thing that was good about that movie was what's his face, the guy who dies in the end. I forget his name.
Oh, Quicksilver.
Quicksilver. That's Silver Surfer, but that's wrong. So,
actually, there's a fun fact. I'm sorry for interrupting, but there's actually a fun fact. At that time, there were two Quicksilvers. There was the MCU.
Yes, I love Quicksilver the X-Men.
Yes.
Evan Peters and Taylor Johnson. They're both in the movie Kick-Ass together.
Yes, Kick-Ass.
I love Evan Peters.
That's a great movie.
That's one of my favorite not MCU movies.
Chloe Grace Moretz and Nicolas Cage.
Oh, that's at his best. Nicolas Cage at his best is Kick-Ass. For
one of the most underappreciated comic book movies out there.
Yes. 100%. And then what do I have next? Oh, Avengers Endgame, because the time traveling sucks. And this is coming from somebody who loves Doctor Who. So if I say time traveling sucks, it's because you're doing it wrong.
My favorite movie of all time is Back to the Future. So
yes, Back to the Future, doing it right. Avengers Endgame, doing it wrong. Just no, you messed up.
Okay. So I guess now we can move on to middle tier so we can all do the same thing, take turns reading it off. Yeah, so for me, number 15, I have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Number 14, I have Ant-Man. Number 13, I have Thor: The Dark World. Number 12 is Black Panther. Number 11 is Captain Marvel. Number 10 is Spider-Man: Homecoming. And number 9 is Far From Home.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay, so we go from 15 to 9.
Yeah, okay. I broke them up in pairs of 8, 7-ish because I was like, that's an easy way. Because if you had 24, it would be 3 sets of 8.
Oh, good.
Just
all right.
Okay,
so for me, number 15 is Thor. Number 14 is Ant-Man and the Wasp. Number 13 is Spider-Man Far From Home. Number 12 is Doctor Strange. Number 11 is Avengers Endgame. And number 10 is Ant-Man. And number 9 is Captain America, the First Avenger.
Okay, interesting.
For me, 15, I have Captain America Civil War. 14, I have Thor. 13, I have Ant-Man and the Wasp. 12, Captain Marvel. 11, Captain America the First Avenger. 10, Spider-Man Homecoming. And 9, Endgame.
Okay.
Okay. So my list got all messed up. Okay. 15, I have Captain America the First Avenger. 14, Spider-Man Far From Home. 13, Spider-Man Homecoming. 12 is empty. Sorry. 11 is the First Avengers. Wait, no, sorry. I don't know. My list got all messed up for some reason. My notes just had a glitch. So yeah, moving on. Just go ahead without me.
Well, I guess I can start talking about mine, and then we can come back to you, Rachel, once we all sort of cycle through. So for me, I sort of talked about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I liked Baby Groot. Like, I understand it's not the best film, but I, like, for me, as I went through ranking all of these, was like, which films would I want to rewatch? And I could see myself rewatching Volume 2 more so than Volume 1. Ant-Man is fun. I like Paul Rudd. I think it was interesting how instrumental his character was in Endgame. Considering, like, a lot of the Ant-Man movies people don't really talk about, I feel like they're more of, like, the underappreciated films of the MCU, but I thought it was fun, like, when I watched it. I was also reading a book at the time that was a heist novel, so I was, like, in a very heist mood, and so I enjoyed that film. Like, Thor: The Dark World, I said, like, I loved Loki and, like, all of his moments in that. Okay, so Black Panther. This is where I feel like a lot of people are freaking out on me.
I gotta hear this.
Okay, so I took, this past semester in the fall, I took a post-colonial literature class that was subtitled Why Wakanda Matters. So I was taking that class for like 4-ish months from like September to December. Yeah, so that's like 4 months. And essentially, like, I was watching Black Panther like weekly-ish. Like, I was having to watch it like lots of times because we had projects that we had to do where we were each given a certain aspect of like post-colonialism to talk about related to Black Panther and do a whole project with it. And then we had a screening of the movie afterwards. So I was watching the movie again with an entire end of people during finals week. And so there's this like thing in psychology. I can't think of the specific term, but I took AP psychology my senior year. So I should know this term because we talked about it. But it's like when you're assigned something, it no longer becomes enjoyable.
Oh,
and you just start to like lose interest in it because it suddenly becomes a chore and it becomes like not fun.
Yeah.
Because I've seen that film I had to see that film so many times and like have to analyze it for like a school type setting. It just sort of like lost its for me, but I still think it's a good film. I think it's one of the better MCU films. Obviously, it's an Oscar winner, which like speaks volumes. Like, I'm like, my ranking doesn't reflect like how good the movies are. Like, I still think it's a great film, and that there's lots of really interesting commentary, and that it does a lot of things that normal MCU movies like aren't able to do. And so like I respect it for that, and I had a lot of fun analyzing it, and I thought it was really interesting to take a class that sort of brought that film up into discussion. And I think we had a lot of really interesting talks about the film and about the characters, and I think it gave me a new perspective on that film. But like just having to watch it so many times over, like it sort of took some of the out of it for me, you know. But
it's sort of it's sort of like an overplayed song on the radio. You love it in the beginning, and then the more you listen to it, and you're unfortunately forced to listen to it, you just lose. But it's so funny that you mentioned that, because that happens so many times with books and movies that I watched for classes in college and high school and stuff like that. You know, it's a pity that that's unfortunately what our education will do to the entertainment arts for us from time to time.
And it's a liberal arts, which is even more unfortunate.
What you showed us, Gabby, is the fact that you still appreciate it. It's unfortunately the fact that you had to overwatch it. So from this person's perspective, I will let it slide 100%.
Yeah. So then finishing up, Captain Marvel, I have it ranked at 11 personally because it was the first MCU film that I saw in theaters. I saw it opening weekend. So like I also think about like the opening credits with like Stan Lee and like how beautiful that was, and also the fact that it's like the first woman like superhero, like an MCU film that's centered on a woman superhero. Like I feel like that was a big thing. I also was really stoked for the end credit scene. Like I came into that movie like all psyched for the end credit scene. But I do feel like looking at it, like this is like the one Marvel movie I really haven't gotten a chance to rewatch, and I'm definitely planning on rewatching it soon because I want to see like go back to it. Like I remember like having this thought that like Captain America was a Skrull, right? And I was like, because people were thinking the Cap was going to die, and I was like, no, like not on my watch. And so I remember like thinking about that, and so I thought like the movie was kind of fun, like the experience of getting to see it in theaters. Like I went with a friend, and it was just like the theater going experience that made it enjoyable for me and why I ranked it where I did. And then Homecoming and Far From Home, the Spider-Man movies are so fun. Like Homecoming was the first MCU movie that I like sat down and watched entirely because this is like when everyone was freaking out about Tom Holland and Spider-Man. So I was like, I have to watch this. And I think that was like the film that really got me to be like, I need to start watching Marvel movies. And so that was always fun. And I think Far From Home, I liked, like it took me a while to decide my thoughts on Far From Home, but after rewatching it recently, like Jake Gyllenhaal is just so great as Mysterio.
He's amazing.
He's my favorite villains, just because he like really goes out with a bang, and he almost took Spider-Man out of the MCU for like a hot second. So like I gotta give him props. And I mean like the relationship that Jake Gyllenhaal and Tom Holland have, like watching the press and interviews for everything, so fun. So like a lot of that made that movie like worthwhile for me. So
well, I definitely have to say that I can't remember who it was, but someone harped on this, calling Thor in the beginning very Shakespearean. And I 100% agree with the first Thor. But then again, it was directed by Kenneth Branagh.
Exactly, which is why I like.
Who is one of my favorite directors. I love Kenneth Branagh as a director. It's a fun movie, but, you know, unfortunately for me, it didn't age well. I think that it got a little stale as it moved, the more I watched it. Ant-Man and the Wasp and Ant-Man. Now, I would throw Doctor Strange, and even though it's not in my list yet, Guardians of the Galaxy into this whole cluster, because one of the things that's great about those specific films is these were three franchises in Marvel that didn't have a large fan base compared to Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, Captain America, etc., etc. So it gave the directors and the studios a lot of breathing room to really make them something bigger and better. And that's why I loved what they did with Doctor Strange. I mean, at the beginning, I wasn't sure about Doctor Strange having Benedict Cumberbatch because
I love Benedict Cumberbatch. I was here for that.
I'm glad he did what he did, but they were originally in Phoenix, and I thought that would have been better because I thought he had the look based on the comic book character.
Phoenix's fit is like the Joker and like Benedict Cumberbatch. Like I feel like that's after seeing all of that.
But I love Doctor Strange because it brings us into the MCU magic universe, which is something that we didn't get much of. I mean, thanks to Guardians of the Galaxy, we got the beginnings of the cosmic universe, and then we got the magic universe. And the magic universe is such an interesting world for Marvel. And now with the sequel coming out, the Multiverse of Madness, we're finally going to hopefully see some very interesting multiverse concepts. Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp, they're not the greatest films, but I cannot stop laughing. Paul Rudd first of all, Michael Pena should be in every movie known to man.
He's fun, like his little bits are fun.
He's hilarious. But Paul Rudd, I also was really impressed that they went with the Scott Lang story and not have Hank Pym as the main character, because that's the original Ant-Man. But I also loved seeing Michael Douglas as Hank Pym, such a great choice. And then to get Michelle Pfeiffer as the original Wasp was a stroke of genius. And I think that the thing that makes Ant-Man and the Wasp so much fun is the acting chops that Paul Rudd gives. When he has Janet Van Dyne in his body and he's acting like Janet Van Dyne, and he's like being very soft to Michael Douglas's character. That's just acting right there. He does it. He sells it. It's fantastic. And with the original Ant-Man, knowing that my favorite director was the original director, and that was Edgar Wright, and then Peyton Reed would then go on to direct the film. However, there was a lot of Edgar Wright mannerisms throughout the film, so I still enjoyed it. But yeah, those movies are just fun movies. Now, when it comes to Spider-Man Far From Home, you know, take it from someone who actually went to go see the Sam Raimi films with Tobey Maguire and saw the Andrew Garfield films, which could have been so much better. The reason why I loved this Spider-Man Far From Home, even though I think Homecoming is better, it's just because of the fact that they did it right this time. They got a young person. When Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield started their roles in Spider-Man, they were both 28 years old, respectively, at that time. Yeah. They got a 19-year-old in Tom Holland to play this character, and he's actually the believable teenager that you want to see Spider-Man be. And the fact that I appreciated that there was no love triangles in these films. There was a love story, but I also appreciated the fact that the love story was secondary and not the main crux. It's really about him wanting to be Spider-Man. And as someone who watched all those Spider-Man films, Spider-Man Far From Home, that mid-credits scene, I screamed at the top of my lungs when J.K. Simmons pulled up. I was so happy that they actually had the ability to make that happen. It made every Spider-Man fan excited and ready for Spider-Man 3. And there are so many things that they can do with this character and these films. There's all these rumors of Spider-Man versus the Sinister Six. I hope that that's going to happen, because that's been something that Spider-Man fans of films and comic books have been wanting for the last 20 years. And to cap it all off, ironically, Captain America, the First Avenger, it's just a great origin story. And I just love what Chris Evans did in that film. Him and Haley Atwell, Hugo Weaving as Red Skull. What a choice. He's not spoken about much anymore, and everybody completely forgets that he's in that.
I'm so excited to see him. Yeah, Infinity War and Endgame, to see him pop up.
Yeah.
My mom was like, who? And I was like, remember?
And also, the most important thing that they actually did turn Bucky into a serious character, even in the first film, because he pretty much is to Captain America what Robin is to Batman. And he was also the campy sidekick character in the early 1940s when he was in the comics, same as Robin. But I just love the fact that in the last 20 years, when it comes to DC and Marvel films and television shows, that these sidekicks have actually been taken seriously, because there's so much meat to their own personal stories. And I feel the films gave Bucky true justice, and he's just as an integral part of that film as Captain America is in the First Avenger. And it's just a great film altogether. And I just love how they prepare us for the Avengers in the end of Captain America, the First Avenger.
So, my 15 was Captain America Civil War. I think that movie did a really good job. I enjoyed the airplane fight scene. I thought it was fun to see all of the characters come together. I was really excited. And I think it was good because it did a good job of like showing that both of them did things that were wrong. I think it was a bit strange to build up the two teams and then to just be like, and then they don't matter. Like, in my opinion, they didn't matter in the end, because like you saw both of the characters, like where they were coming from, and like both of them had valid opinions. Like, I thought like both of them were valid. Except that Steve should have told Tony about what happened with Bucky. Like, probably could have been a better friend there, but whatever. I still love him. It's fine. Thor 1, I agree. Thor is like super Shakespearean, and like it's really fun. Like, as a person who loves Shakespeare, I've studied Shakespeare in school a whole lot. I directed a Shakespeare play. So like, as a person who loves Shakespeare, I agree in the first one, he's like super Shakespearean, but also there's such a comedic side of Thor, even in the first one, like when he doesn't understand Earth culture, like when they take him to like the diner and then he gets a drink and he like throws the cup down, he's like, another, like, that's hilarious. And like they bring comedy into that world. Like, Thor has never not been funny. It's just like it was just kind of minor in the
I
first
think
few.
that was also really good for Tom Hiddleston too. Like, obviously, I know I keep talking about Loki, but like,
Yeah.
I love him to pieces, and I think Tom Hiddleston
I love
does
him
such
too,
a
yeah.
good job of playing his character. That like for him, because like when everyone like thinks of Tom Hiddleston, they think of Shakespeare. Like I feel like he always has questions about
he's
Shakespeare.
fantastic.
That like him working with Kenneth Branagh on Thor, and like
Yeah.
there were articles that people shared about like Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston being like unknowns at the time.
Unknown, yeah,
And I was
yeah.
like, I was like, this is just like it's so
Yeah.
perfect for
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Ant-Man and the Wasp, it's the first film that has like a woman in the title. She's finally kind of like even with, and I think Evangeline Lilly does a fantastic job as the Wasp. She's amazing. I love her in Lost, and like seeing her in this, it was just great to see her character. And her and Paul Rudd, the back and forth was amazing. Paul Rudd, I've always loved him as an actor from like everything he's done. He just appears in so much, and like he is fantastic. So like this film, fantastic. Also the narrating scenes, he just when he's like, remember, and then this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. It's fantastic. It's hilarious, and I love it. And they're honestly, I feel like the Ant-Man films are underrated. I feel like not enough talk about them. And then I had Captain Marvel at 12. I think Captain Marvel was a fantastic movie. I don't think they were like hyping up as much to like say that you need to see it before Infinity War Endgame, but like I think it's important as like the first film focusing on a female superhero that like it was done justice, and I think that's kind of why people were hyping it up, rather, in my opinion. I thought it did a really great job, and like Carol Danvers is a fantastic human, and like I love her, and she's just great, and like I loved her, and it was amazing seeing her story, and I think I'm excited to see more of it. I thought they did a good job like setting up her story, and I thought it did a good job going to the 90s. The first Avenger, I remember rewatching the gym while running on the treadmill. I ran for like the whole time, and whenever he was running, I started running as well. So that was a whole time. He runs a lot. I love Cap. His origin story is just like kind of the like central idea of like what an origin story should be, and I think that's great. Like he's just like kind of the perfect little human there. And then Endgame is just I skipped Spider-Man Homecoming in my list, but Spider-Man. Okay, I have also seen all of the Spider-Man films that have come out. I watched them as they came out as well, and I thought they were all good. I was a big fan because like there wasn't really an MCU at the beginning. So I was a big fan going to see them. I really enjoyed like anything with superpowers from when I watched Sky High to present day. And
I love Sky High.
And I thought that Spider-Man Homecoming, I was super excited that he was finally the right age. He wasn't like a 20-year-old trying to play. I was so hyped when they hired someone who was 19. I was like, finally, someone who was a teenager when they hired him. He is fantastic. As Austin said in the chat, he is very good to look at. He's very good looking. He's just amazing. He's just a fun guy, and I agree. I like that there's not like a romance at the central core of it. Like the central story is just him trying to figure things out. I like that they brought in the Robert Downey Jr. thing because I think it's fun to connect it to the MCU, even though like it kind of diminishes his story as like, oh, my uncle and everything like that. Like still, I love that they brought him into the MCU with Robert Downey Jr. And I think he's really come into his role.
That comment, just thought I.
And I think that he's just a fantastic like I think I saw a thing online about this before, like this was like a year ago or whatever, but it said that Tobey Maguire did a good job playing the Spider-Man part, and then Andrew Garfield did a good job playing the Peter Parker part, and then Tom Holland put them together. Something like that. Either it was that or that it was flipped. I'm not sure. But that Tom Holland put these characters together, and he was like the perfect of both. Like he's the best of both worlds. He's like Hannah Montana, and he just does a fantastic job as the character. I'm a big fan of him, and I like that the love story is like there, but it's not super pushed. And Endgame, I think just the spectacle of it is amazing. It was just amazing. Like what a theater going experience watching that on the Thursday night it came out. Packed theater, just everyone there just screaming. Wow, it was a time. I was such a big fan. I liked the time traveling, but it's not for everyone, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think also at the end when like it's just Captain America against the whole army, and then all of the people come out of the portals. Wow, I cried just thinking about it. They released like, the script online, and I read the script to my parents. They were like, I was like almost crying. They're like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm reading the script for my Avengers Endgame, and like it says Cap is standing against the army, and then all of these people, and I was like reading it to them, and I was just started crying, and they were like, what are you doing? I was just like, it's like a whole universe built up to this, and it's been honestly, now that I'm saying all this, I feel like I should move it up in my ranking, but like we're here now, so it's fine.
Okay.
I digress. It's your turn, Rachel. Yeah, and when Cap got the hammer, you right, Molly. Like,
yeah,
ooh,
this.
Yeah.
My friend had to like. I was in the theater with my friend, and we were in like the coolest thing. We went to one of those theaters where you can like eat. Like,
Oh yeah,
when
I
you're
love
in the
those.
theater. I think it was Hollywood Boulevard, if I'm correct. The one near me. And it was so cool because the entire room was like Marvel themed. So there was like a big Groot that was behind me, and there was like posters of all the different superheroes. I think there was a big cutout for Spider-Man Homecoming. And it was just so much fun to be in that like theater with a whole bunch of like Marvel people and getting to just like enjoy everything. And yeah, when Cap got the hammer, like I lost it. Like I was like, I knew it. Like, that was like that was the moment when it broke me because I was like, we knew that he could lift it.
We're about to talk about Endgame in my top. Yeah, the reason why it was low was I love the final battle. The final battle is right out of every comic book that I ever read in my life. It is exactly how you want to see it end, and I did cry at the end when I saw how Captain America's story
I saw.
Because he needed that ending. I love the fact that he got that ending. Of course, you know, with what happened to Tony Stark, you know, what can I say? You know, that was, but you know what, the way that I look at it, I read enough comic books to say, oh yeah, characters will die, but somehow they will come back to life. And there's all these rumors right now floating around that these characters are still going to come back and make little appearances. I don't know how they're going to make it work. But
I saw something that before Endgame came out that was like, they should just have Robert Downey Jr. just cameo instead of Stan Lee. Now that Stan Lee is gone, that Robert Downey Jr. should just do all the cameos. And I was like, facts. But then Endgame happened, and I was like, I don't know how they could do that, but like if they could, I would be here for it.
Yeah. The only thing was the movie itself. I just feel that there's just so much more buildup than there has to be. Like, you know, I loved how it ended, but the time traveling, it was fun, but it wasn't really great. I did, however, love the fact that it was Ant-Man's idea because the little hero does
finally he got his moment.
Loved that. My favorite part of it is in the battle and you hear the car horn. That's my favorite part of the whole battle because that's where you want to see a really hilariously smart joke just get thrown in there. But yeah, I mean, like I'll explain why I think Infinity War is so much more better. That's just my own personal thoughts. So
yeah.
So Rachel ending.
Oh, I think it was also worth the hype, Molly. I agree. It was amazing. I just think there's also other amazing films.
Yeah.
Rachel? See you know.
Yeah, I know she said she left a comment in the private chat. So if you want, we can just move on, and then when she comes back, we can sort of cycle back around. So I'll read off. Oh, okay. I think she left. I'm looking at our chat on Twitter. So I apologize that Rachel couldn't join us, but we're going to continue for the rest of this because we are pretty much almost
joining for a little bit, Rachel.
Yeah. But anyway, okay, to get to the top tier now, because I think we covered everything. So I'll read off mine. I have Infinity War at number 8. Sorry. I have Captain America, the First Avenger at 7. I have Age of Ultron at 6. I have Winter Soldier at 5. Thor Ragnarok at 4. The original Avengers at 3, Civil War at 2, and then Endgame is number 1 for me.
Okay.
And I will talk about all of those.
Okay. Number 8 for me is Guardians of the Galaxy. Number 7 is Iron Man. Number 6 is The Incredible Hulk. Number 5 is Spider-Man Homecoming. Number 4 is Black Panther. Number 3 is Avengers Infinity War. Number 2 is Avengers. And number 1 is still Captain America, the Winter Soldier.
Ooh, okay, interesting.
For me, number 8 is Captain America, the Winter Soldier. 7 is Black Panther. 6 is Thor Ragnarok. 5 is Spider-Man Far From Home. 4 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. 3 is Iron Man. 2 is Avengers. And 1 is Infinity War.
Okay, fun. So for me, I have Infinity War at number 8, just mainly because I feel like I wasn't able to enjoy that the way everyone else was, because I like immediately got spoiled for that movie the minute that it came out.
Right.
And I didn't watch the movies until like a year later after that, just because I'm always super late to get on the hype train. Like, and so like everything that had happened, like I didn't get the experience of getting to like see that movie in theaters with everyone else and like freak out about like the snap and all these characters are dead and oh my god, you know. But when I did watch it, I thought it was good. I just think like it was also kind of hard because all the characters were so spread out. There's like this character here, like these set of characters here, and I was like, that's kind of like a lot going on. And I probably, if I went back and rewatched it, I would maybe enjoy it more. I think that movie is also Thanos' movie too. That's one thing that a lot of people say. But also a lot of the comments, like then going back and like watching reviews as I started to get more into the MCU, people were like, Thanos, people were like, oh, he's sympathetic, like you understand what it is that he's doing, like et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, I never once found him likable. Like
No.
I was like, this is weird. I was like, why do you like? I understand, like he like lived on Titan, right? Like he lost like a whole bunch of his brethren, so he was like, this is the smart thing to do. But I was like, okay, like there's maybe a rationale, but his rationale doesn't make sense because I think there was a Super Carlin Brothers video. I watch the Super Carlin Brothers. I love them. I think they make really great videos. So they're very fun. And they made a video where they specifically went into like Thanos' idea of like getting rid of 50% of the population, and it like. It does not work. Like it will eventually like lead to the same problem they currently have. So I was like, this doesn't like, I don't know. And like the way he like treats Gamora, like the when he like throws her, like how expendable like he's just and like the way like I'm thinking about that moment in Infinity War with Peter Quill, Thanos, and Gamora, where he essentially like tricks them, and like the way like the mental manipulation that happens there with like the bubble gun, right?
Oh yeah.
All that just. So brutal.
Yep, Thanos is a big daddy.
I don't. Yeah, and so I was just like, I don't like. For me, like I didn't like as a villain. I think he's a great villain. I think Josh Brolin is fantastic at playing him. But like, I never found him like, well, you know, because I didn't get the experience of seeing it in theaters. I was like, that's where that was. First Avenger, I really love because, like, as we all know, I love Captain America. I love Chris Evans as Captain America. Like, I love everything about that. And so the first Avenger is really fun. I think it's fun to go back and watch that movie, at least for me, after watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., because I love that show. I'm so excited for the 7th season to come back. And, like, a lot of that show is essentially dealing with Hydra. And so it's fun to get to see the origin and see that sort of play into a lot of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So it's always fun to go back and watch that movie. I also love, like, Stanley Tucci in that movie. Like, his character is fun. And Peggy Carter, obviously, like, she's fantastic. And I love that she introduces her character. Like, she's just the best. I love the relationship between Steve and Bucky and the friendship there. And it makes me so sad. Yeah, yes, exactly. There was this comment that Molly put out. Where was it? Okay, I can't find it. But
I know what you're talking about. Where she said,
she said that, but then she also said that, and I was like, agree.
Agree.
So, I just like the Captain America First Avenger is always fun. I love all the Captain America films. I just think they're all so well done, and I think it's the best, like, of like the trilogies of like different films. Like, I think Cap gets the best. Like, Iron Man probably is my favorite, then Thor maybe, and then like Captain America. And I don't know where I would like start to rank like Guardians, like getting a little bit more in depth with that. But like, I think Cap gets the best.
The trilogies are finished, so we can't really rate them as well.
Yeah. So there's that. Age of Ultron for me, like I ranked it so high personally because I feel like so many of those moments are pivotal as you get into Endgame. Like there's just a lot of things that happen there that I think you come back to. Like you have the whole moment with like Cap and the hammer, like he jiggles it, and then he gets it eventually, you know, so there's that. It's the first introduction.
I really like that, and I like made them watch it again.
Yeah, I was like, there's the introduction of the Infinity Stones. There's that joke about language, like the Captain America language joke that I just find funny because it's like played throughout the entire film. That's such like an iconic MCU thing now. God, what else? I like also the introduction of Wanda as the Scarlet Witch because I love her. Like I think she's just such a badass. And so that was fun. I just think you have lots of great like character moments too. that like maybe there wasn't a lot going on plot wise, but I think there's a significant amount of character development that's happening. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons why I like the movie, because it gives you time to like sit with the Avengers, like specifically with Hawkeye. Like you don't really get to know a lot about him. He spends most of the first movie being like brainwashed, and so you get to see him and like his family, and you like there's a lot of character stuff going on.
He doesn't have his own movie.
Yeah, exactly. Winter Soldier, I love. I think the beginning of it is kind of slow for me, but like once you really get into the thick of it, it is so much fun. Like I just love that movie to pieces. I love Sebastian Stan in it. The choreography in it is amazing. It's the first Russo brothers film, and it's just it's so fun. It's so great.
I think it's Scarlett Johansson's best.
Yes.
I think it's her best as Black Widow.
Together were a lot of fun, and I think their moments together, like just even the conversations they have, like the like friendship and the camaraderie they develop is really, really special. And I think like that's fun. So I talked about Thor Ragnarok. I've watched Thor Ragnarok so many times. I love Taika Waititi. I love Loki's moments in that movie. It's so much fun. I think it's like very witty, and it's just a movie because it is so lighthearted and like whimsical that it just has a place in my heart. Also like when like the breaking of Mjolnir, like it feels like such a big change for Thor as a character. Like as you then get into Endgame, because like a lot of people talk about that fat Thor, which I want to bring up because like I feel like that's a hot box issue. Like when it comes to him, I don't know how to say this, but like after everything he goes through in Thor Ragnarok, and then like what he goes through in Infinity War, I'm like, there has to be some like physical representation of that, you know? Like I feel like if you just acted like everything was fine and he was still the same Thor, like that would be a little bit weird. So I don't know.
He changed in some way.
Yeah. But I think like the Thor that you get in Thor Ragnarok is by far my favorite of all the Thors. Like I think he's just so confident in himself, and I think it like absolutely showed that Chris Hemsworth is able to do comedy, because I know there was like some other comedy films that he did, like he did the Ghostbusters reboot, like, and I was like, okay, that's a comedy that did it, but like this was like I think it really gave him space to shine, and like Mark Ruffalo, like I think it was just such a good group of people. Jeff Goldblum, oh my god,
Jeff Goldblum underdone. I wanted more. I didn't get enough from him. And I love Kate Blanchett though. I wanted more from her too. I loved her as Hela. Because
I'm hopeful. I don't know if Jeff Goldblum's gonna be back in Thor: Love and Thunder. I saw something where he will. I think he will. I also have been watching the series that Jeff Goldblum has been doing on Disney Plus, and I was just like, I feel like Thor Ragnarok was like his triumphant return to cinema, and I was like all about that. Okay. Then the first Avengers movie at number 3. I love the original Avengers movie. I think there's something so special about it. I particularly love Clark Gregg as Phil Coulson in that movie. He's just such a great character, and he's really like binds all the Avengers together. And I think that's a film that had just so much magic surrounding it because people were waiting for it for so long. Like Tom Hiddleston as Loki, I could just rewatch that movie so many times. I tried shawarma for the first time because of the Avengers, and it was so good. So it's just a fun movie. Like I've rewatched that movie so many times and love it to pieces because of just how much fun it is, and I just love these movies. Like it's so hard to explain why I love them, other than I just do. They're just fun. Okay, Captain America: Civil War. I love this movie so much. I have not read the comics. I don't know if I would like the comics more. I want to get into comics, but I think I'm kind of intimidated because I'm like, I have no idea where to start. So
we'll talk.
Yeah, we should. So for Civil War, though, one of the reasons why I really loved it is because I think you have the characters of Steve and Tony who sort of always have had a little bit of this opposition a little bit, but you're starting to get to see them shift a little bit. So obviously the Cap that you see in the first Avenger is not the same Cap that you see in Civil War. His perspective has changed a little bit. I don't think he's really as loyal to the system as he once was. Whereas Tony is someone who would be a little bit more reckless, and now seeing there's a system he needs to follow to, and the opposition, the things that happen between their two characters. I mean, if you don't have Civil War, like Infinity War does not happen. Thanos does not win. I absolutely, completely, and entirely believe that. And so I think that film is game changing in a lot of ways because of that. I think getting to see, like, I consider it like the Avengers 2.5, to be honest, because it doesn't really feel like Cap's movie, you know, in a lot of ways. Like, I am Cap in that situation, but like, I like personally.
There's so many other characters that he's not the focal point, really.
Yeah, I mean, you're also introducing Black Panther, you're introducing Spider-Man. Yeah. You have all these other characters that have arcs going on. So, I mean, it's not necessarily his film, but I just have fun with it. I personally will say this, and I think I've said this in a Twitter thread when everyone was like doing those Marvel Twitter threads a while back. One of my favorite villains in the MCU is Zemo. I personally like him. I know he's like, you showed me a picture of what he looked like in the comics, and I was like, whoa, because I like didn't expect him to look like that. Because I think his character in the comics is very different from the way that he was in Civil War, at least from what I can tell. But I liked him as a villain, particularly because he doesn't, like, his plan isn't like world domination. It isn't like, I want to take out half the population. It isn't, I want to like kill as many people as possible. Like, his plan is just entirely, I have information and knowledge, and I'm going to use that as a weapon to be able to take out like this personal pain that I'm feeling because the Avengers have wronged me. And I just find that so interesting, like the psychology of him as a villain, that he, and like his mental manipulation and like I just find it so fascinating. I'm really, really psyched for him to be back in oh my gosh, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm excited to see. Yes, I'm so excited to see him back because I think he's fantastic. Daniel Brühl is great at playing him. Like, I just thought he was fun villain. And I think ultimately, like, you could make the argument out of all the MCU villains, he is, I mean, you could maybe sort of say, because we haven't really seen where the Spider-Man trilogy goes. So I don't know if you could say that about Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio, like how successful he is at accomplishing his like endgame plans. But like, that aside, I think Zemo is probably the most successful villain in the MCU because he breaks apart the Avengers. He accomplishes exactly what he wants. And that's sort of how the film ends, right? With Ross Everett. He like, isn't he the one that's talking to Zemo and he's like, you thought you could, like, because they're essentially still thinking that he had this like plan for world domination with all the super soldiers, and that was never his plan. Like, he killed all of them because that was like not his goal, you know. But obviously Ross Everett still doesn't know that, and he's like, oh, you think you like we're gonna get away with something, whatever. And Zemo knows he got exactly what he wanted. He accomplished his plans, and I don't think there's any other MCU villain to really be able to do that, you know, be successful at it. And so that's why I just find him as a villain really, really compelling and interesting. So that's why he's my favorite.
There are rumors that he will wear the pink jumpsuit in the second Netflix show, the purple hood and the leopard skin spandex. That might actually be happening. I'd love to see that.
I mean, I'd like to see what context they bring that into, but like, I wouldn't mind it. I mean, I just hope that they don't ruin his character from Civil War. Like, I hope whatever momentum they decide to take it, that they don't, like, that he doesn't, because I don't want him to become one of those villains that's like, I'm going to be hell-bent on mass destruction. Like, because that's not, like, who his character is right now in Civil War, and I don't want to see him take that reckless turn. Like, I don't know. So, okay. And lastly, Endgame. Then I'll shut up. I because, like, Endgame was this big thing. Like, it was, like, everyone was talking about, we were all waiting for it. Like, the experience of it is just so epic. And so I didn't get that with Infinity War, but I got that with Endgame. And so it made the theater going experience really fun. And I think as a conclusion, there's just so many fulfilling moments. And it also opens up a lot of wormholes for like interesting new routes for the MCU to take. I feel like this film also, because the Russo brothers directed it and they started off directing the Cap films, that it feels like a Cap movie, which is probably one of the reasons why I like it. I feel like Cap as a character gets like the most fulfilling and satisfying ending out of everything. Like, he gets to lift the hammer, he gets to be with Peggy in the end. Like, that, I mean, that movie is like perfect for Captain America fans, and so that's one of the reasons why I love it. We also have like the beginning, the branch off for the Loki series. I remember like coming out of the movie and screaming at one of my friends, I'm like, that's how the Loki series is going to start, with like Loki with the Tesseract, and it's going to be amazing. And I was just like so excited. I think you also get like Scarlet Witch, like the moment that he has with Thanos where she almost solely takes him out and he has to bring down like the whole nuclear. I was like, yes, finally, like some Scarlet Witches, I feel like she was really underutilized as a character, and you finally get to see how powerful she is. I mean, there was one moment where she was like taking out like the stone. Vision's head while also holding back Thanos. I was like, she's such a powerful character. Like, why are we not like acknowledging this? That I like loved that. There's
like in Infinity War when she comes down and then what's her name? Denai Guerrera's character, I believe.
Okoye.
Okoye, yeah.
Yes, Okoye. When she's like, she was up there all this time.
Yeah,
it's like she's super powerful. Like, why are we gonna keep her away?
Yeah. And I think like the moment that she has with Thanos where she's like, I don't even know who you are, and he's like, she's like, you will, like you took everything from me, you know, like that whole line of dialogue was so well delivered and fun. The Woman of MCU moments, like that whole battle sequence, the moment I cried, the moment that Falcon was like on your left,
that's a classic.
So good. I find the memes.
Well, we haven't talked about Falcon. He's one of the best characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I love Anthony Mackie.
He's great. But anyway, I like find it funny. Like I also look at the memes that are like, "Oh, Falcon has to talk to Doctor Strange." It's like, no, the portal has to be on his left. Like you don't understand. Yeah. Like we have to make this. I was like, I find those funny. I love that battle sequence is amazing. Thor with Mjolnir is or Cap with Mjolnir is amazing. Thor getting Mjolnir back though, like when he goes back to Dark World and he summons the hammer and it's like he's still worthy. Like that's a really beautiful moment that I love. The time travel, I understand, like it's not the best, and time travel plots aren't always like fun, and I think it's kind of confusing. Like I still go back and listen to Professor Hulk's one line about like that he's explaining to
he's like, it's not like the movies.
No, he's explaining it to Paul. Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, you know what I'm saying. Where he's explaining that. Where he's like, your past becomes your present. I like listened to that and I was like, I think I need to write this down and like stare at it to understand. Like it's not like Back to the Future, whatever. That one part, though, that I find really, really funny. With Rhodey's character, where he like does like the noose, where he's like, why don't we just go back in time, find baby Thanos, and like I was like, this is like not something I would expect from Rhodey. I feel like
that's a Deadpool move.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like Don Cheadle had some really great comedic moments in that movie that I wasn't expecting, and I thought that was fun for his character, and it was just overall like such a satisfying time. God, the one thing though that did frustrate me about Endgame, and I'm gonna say this, I wasn't able to get to see the movie for some reason until like opening weekend. Like I didn't get to see it until like the Saturday and Sunday that it came out. So I was having to wait like several days, like trying to avoid spoilers. And I walk into class on Friday afternoon, 7th period, and my teacher has a whole PowerPoint presentation put together with spoilers for Endgame. And he went through the entire PowerPoint and just started spoiling the whole movie because he saw it Thursday night. And I was like, what is wrong with you? So I didn't get spoiled because I turned the other way. I covered my ears. But like he played music about like time travel. Like he like basically like there were lots of things where he spoiled certain plot points. He did it in riddles until it like wasn't like it was straight up spoilers. But I was like, if I was still looking at this, I would start thinking about things. And I was just like, why do you have to do that? Like,
wait until like Monday at least.
I didn't even see.
This is terrible. Like So
I didn't even see Endgame on the opening weekend. Honestly, if I would have seen Endgame on the opening weekend, it probably would have wrecked me because that weekend was just tough because you had the premiere of Avengers Endgame and you also had the Battle of Winterfell on Game of Thrones that weekend. I don't know how half this country survived. I don't know how he did it. That was a crazy, crazy weekend.
I know because I remember coming in like that Monday after seeing the movie, like, and talking to my AP Lit teacher who also watches Game of Thrones and being like, "Oh my god!" And we were like just all lost it. It was fun, and that class had like 13 kids, so it was a good time.
So I want to bring up Falcon again because I completely forgot to talk about that great moment he has in the first Ant-Man movie with Ant-Man. That is one of my favorite parts of all the MCU. It's great. But
my mom was like, who's this character? And I was like, don't you remember him from Captain America?
Yeah. But anyway, Guardians of the Galaxy, The only reason why it's at number 8 is not because I don't like it. It's just because I think the other movies are better. All these movies are great. I want to even the ones that I don't like that much. It's just because of the fact that the other ones are higher because I think the other ones are better. That's the way they are. They're just the whole MCU Infinity Saga seriously reads like a comic book, and that's the reason why I love them all so dearly. But Guardians is just flat out fun. I just love all of the cosmic universe. I love the blend of comedy and action. I also have a soft spot for Howard the Duck. I was just so glad to see Howard the Duck at the end of the movie. I'm like, oh, is there going to be a Howard the Duck movie and Seth Green's going to voice Howard the Duck? Please, please, please. That would be amazing, because that is the very first Marvel movie ever made, Howard the Duck, 1986, and it's terrible.
Yeah.
Don't even bother to see it if you haven't yet. And then there's the first Iron Man. Robert Downey Jr. getting this role was exactly what he needed as an actor and as a person, because he was just coming off full-on sobriety. He was having so many issues with substance abuse before this. He was still doing a lot of decent work. I mean, everybody completely forgets that he was on a couple of seasons of the show Ally McBeal with Callista Flockhart. And then he went and did a movie before he did Iron Man, which is one of my personal favorites. It's called Charlie Bartlett with Anton Yelchin. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It is a dark Ferris Bueller's Day Off in a great way. And Robert Downey Jr. plays the principal of this kid's school. He is fantastic in the movie. But ever since he got this role, he has become a superstar. He has been in the business since the 1980s. One of his first movies was Weird Science. And the fact that he became this iconic comic book character, and not just that, he sold me. There are so many superheroes throughout the whole ordeal where superhero movies have been made where characters are just miscast. If there is one thing that Marvel does well, they cast beautifully. Although it's funny how we talked earlier about Edward Norton playing the Hulk. Did everyone forget the fact that Terrence Howard was Rhodey in Iron Man before Don Cheadle?
Oh yeah.
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 And Don Cheadle,
I approve of Don Cheadle as
I got to admit,
I love
him
that.
leaving the movie, so glad that he left, because he would not have been the War Machine that we all know and love. Don Cheadle as War Machine was such a great change of the guard.
Yeah.
And
I
Iron
think
Man
I'm
is
also
just
biased because
Yeah,
Don Cheadle and I have the same birthday, so
oh, there you go.
naturally we know
There you
where my
go.
loyalties lie. But anyway,
No, Iron Man is just a fun movie, and I love Jeff Bridges in that movie as well. But one of the few things that I never really got a chance to talk about, which is why I'm getting to Spider-Man Homecoming right now, is one of the few things that a lot of Marvel films lack is really great written villains. Loki is definitely one of the best, but Vulture in Spider-Man Homecoming, especially with the plot twist, that is one of the best villains in the entire MCU. And then Jake Gyllenhaal just took that magic that Michael Keaton gave us and gave us another strong villain in Mysterio. And that's why I'm really excited for the future of Spider-Man in the MCU, because this Spider-Man movie was just the best Spider-Man movie I ever watched. I loved about how he was trying to struggle through high school, how he's trying to get a girl to go to prom with him, and how he's also just trying to be your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and he keeps screwing up, because that is Spider-Man. He is not perfect. He is an everyday average kid that has a heart of gold, but it just shows you that he's just not perfect. And that's why he's so lovable.
There's like a moment in it which like was very minor, probably no one notices except me. But like there's this moment where he's in the hallway with his friend, and he's just like, and like the teacher comes by and he's like, I gotta go. And then he's like, I have a Spanish test. And I was like, I felt that spiritually. He is a teen through and through. Like you can tell that from the movie.
Yeah, like in Civil War. Like in Civil War when Tony's trying to bring him over to Berlin. He's like, but I got homework to do. I'm like, yes, that's Spider-Man. Spider-Man. That's
Exactly.
Peter Parker. I'm just really excited. What I'm really excited for is because of the fact that Tom Holland came into this role so young and that he's been tied into so many different Spider-Man movies. I just want to see him grow. I want to see this character go to college. I want to see this character meet Harry Osborn, who will eventually see Norman Osborn and the Green Goblin. Oh God, if they decided to get Willem Dafoe back to play Green Goblin, that would be a dream come true because he is one of my other favorite villains in the world of Marvel. He is great, and I'd love to see him get a job at the Daily Bugle and become a photographer. Like, that's one of the few things we don't see Spider-Man doing right now. We don't see him taking pictures yet because he's a news photographer. So I'm really curious to see how.
I think they kind of did vlogging like a little bit, like in the opening up of like Homecoming, and I'm assuming maybe that was like the alternative to make it a little bit more modern. Like Spider-Man's a YouTuber. Instead of being a photographer, and I think that's great. Like, I love that. I think
that's very true. I didn't think about that. Thank you.
Guys, there's Captain America. There's Spider-Man.
Yeah. Now, Hulk, on the other hand, I've already said my piece. I think it's just because of the fact that I saw it in theaters when there were only now 2 MCU movies. So I think I just have a bigger connection to it. But I also just love Tim Roth as Abomination in that movie. He's just a creep factor character. He's just scary. He puts fear in me. And I always appreciate it when a villain actually does terrify me because the Vulture had a couple of those moments as well. Black Panther is just such a spectacle. It's beautiful to look at. It's got some great characters. I am a massive fan of Shuri. I love Letitia Wright. She is one of the best young actresses out there. I want to see her in more movies, not just Marvel movies, but she's great. But everybody else that's in there, like the thing that I liked so much about Black Panther was the fact that we finally got to see some of these truly great actors. Some of them had already won Oscars, like Lupita Nyong'o for 12 Years a Slave. These were all well-known actors in the film community, but the problem was they were always in these truly high-caliber films that the average movie-going public doesn't usually go to see. Now, you put Chadwick Boseman, Winston Duke, Lupita Nyong'o, Danny Guerrero, Letitia Wright, you put them all into a big blockbuster superhero movie, and now everybody finally sees just how, I mean, for crying out loud, Forrest Whitaker has been in so many movies in his career, and this was like one of the biggest movies that he's ever been in. I still remember his first movie was Fast Times at Ridgemont High, but it was just great to see all of these great characters in there. I mean, and of course, Michael B. Jordan, come on, as Eric Killmonger.
We were talking a lot about that. Like, is he going to come back? Like, because everyone was like, everyone in my class was like, into Killmonger. Like, we just dissected the hell out of his character. And
my problem with that movie is it was such a spectacle 2/3 of the way in, and I thought the third act was a little bit weak, and I also saw a lot of flaws in the visual effects in the final battle between Killmonger and Black Panther. I just think that, because my attitude is, a couple years later, a very similar kind of story came out in the world of comic books. It was a movie called Aquaman, and I personally think that Aquaman is so much better than Black Panther. I could fight people to the very end, but again,
see, because I had a teacher who pretty much came in, saw Aquaman, and this is the same teacher that spoiled Endgame. He's a weird dude. He also talks about Joe versus the volcano, has a thing with prime numbers, not your average normal human being. But he was like, Aquaman was terrible, and he would just bash it to us every single class. So I haven't watched it.
I've got a video coming that's going to pit these two movies together, and we're going to see who wins once and for all. I'm promising you that. But Black Panther is still a great movie. I'm excited for the second one. There are rumors that it's going to feature a legendary Marvel character, one of the first superheroes in the Marvel world of comics, and that's Namor the Submariner, which is pretty much Marvel's Aquaman. So I'm really curious to see what he's going to be here in this movie, if he is. Avengers Infinity War just shook me. The drama was beautiful. The snap got me hard. And actually, that movie also made me mad because of how Vision went. That was the worst way for him to go. I wanted to punch Thanos in the face myself. I was so angry with how Vision left. But the snap was just, oh my goodness, that was just you want a cliffhanger, that's a cliffhanger right there. But what I also love so much about Avengers Infinity War and Avengers is something that Bridget actually brought up earlier, so many characters But when it comes to Infinity War and Avengers, they managed to give each character the perfect amount of screen time. Everybody gets their moment in the sun. Everybody. And Avengers Infinity War has a massive cast.
Yeah.
And they did it beautifully. I also love in Avengers the movie itself because it was a revelation. This was something that comic book fans and comic book moviegoers alike had been wanting to see something like this happen. Movies that led up to a meeting of the elites, see them all get together and fight a big fight. You know, no one thought that they could pull it off, but holy cow did they do it. And they did it beautifully. So the reason why Captain America Winter Soldier is my #1 film, and I'm glad that it is still my #1 film, is just because it is a dark story. It's as dark as the Marvel Cinematic Universe ever got. I'm surprised that they never tried to go any darker. But I also really think it's the most human story because the best part about that movie is seeing Steve Rogers breaking because of all of these things that he fought for, and everything that he defended is crumbling all around him. And he's trying to find some kind of a saving grace to make him remind himself, what am I fighting for? Because the funny thing about that movie is the true villain in this movie is his own fear and self-doubt. That's what makes that movie so different and so powerful. And because of the fact that this movie makes him so human, the way that he interacts with Black Widow in this movie is so nice. It's literally like they're sitting down and having a cup of coffee when they're having their usual conversations. When he meets Sam Wilson in the movie, it's just like the fact that here's a guy that's been frozen in time for so many years, but he's a soldier. And he sees Anthony Mackie as the Falcon. He's like, I'm a soldier, you're a soldier, we're brothers in arms. There's a connection there, an excellent connection. And I also think that it's some of the best hand-to-hand combat sequences that I've ever seen. That scene in the beginning when he's on that barge and he's fighting that terrorist head, I have to seriously rewind my DVD so many times just so I can watch it again and again and again, and I never get sick of it. It's just a beautiful film through and through, and it's part of the reasons why when I watch some of these other movies, like, I unfortunately am going to have to shoot myself in the foot here again. When I see movies like Thor Ragnarok, or when I see movies like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, it's like, I want more of what Captain America the Winter Soldier did, or like with Avenger, or like a Captain America Civil War. Why can't it be like this? That was great. The jokes and the lightheartedness are just taking away that drama that I love so much and that I crave from these superhero movies. I'm so sorry for being so passionate about this, but this is just the way I feel. I wish for the next couple of movies to come out, I just want more of that, because that's what just makes beautiful pieces of art.
Okay. Bridget, you
my
want to
turn?
go ahead? Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
I'm so sorry for ranting on that. I really
No,
am.
you're good. I feel like that's sort of the nature of how this goes. So
Yeah. So for my 8th one, I had Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I think it's a phenomenally done film. I think it's great to see like the dichotomy between Captain America and Bucky, and just seeing like how they go back and forth, and like how their relationship progresses now that so much has changed, and yet like they still have that connection between them. I think it's so interesting to see how that progresses and how he tries to get Bucky back and everything. I think it's a phenomenally done story. Number 7, I have Black Panther. It's so well done. It's amazing. Like, it's what a film.
It's beautiful.
And I watched it several times. It stands up. It's just really great. It's obviously Oscar nominated, like everything. It's fantastic. So many great actors. Number 6, Thor Ragnarok. Okay. This is where I start talking. Okay. So I hardcore disagree. I think that comedy is a fantastic way to spread your opinion. As Taika Waititi said, Taika Waititi is my favorite director, so this was my introduction to him, and he's just fantastic.
Yeah.
obviously he did Jojo Rabbit, and during one of the interviews for Jojo Rabbit, when he was talking about like one of the scenes, he said that comedy is often looked down upon because people see it as very lighthearted and they're like brushing off of the issues, but it's actually a way for people to delve deeper into the issues because
there's
typically
so many great dark comedy films, and I think Taika was like
I totally agree.
Without actually seeing it, and like so bringing comedy into it just kind of enhances the experience, and like it allows you to laugh and everything and have fun while also addressing very serious issues. So I think a lot of the comedy is just really well done. So I hardcore disagree that like comedy is like taking away from the film's like ability to do its job. I think it does a really great job. And for Thor Ragnarok, I think there is kind of a like my one thing that I didn't really like about Thor Ragnarok was how different the storylines between Hela and then between Thor were. Like they were very different tonally, and I think that they could have done a lot better job with that. I think they could have like leaned more into like the space like fun stuff, or gone with the like Hela plotline. And I think they could have chosen one and like kind of stuck more with that tone. I personally really loved the tone of like them being in space. Thor has always been really fun, and I think he really needed revamping. His movies were probably my least favorite in the MCU. Prior to that film, I was like, Thor, like he's all right, but like,
yeah, I think that was the thing that like Taika probably noticed is that like Thor and Thor: The Dark World were people just like
he was really a side character, and we sort of that's like about him.
Yeah, and so like I think Taika saw that and was like, we need to completely revamp this. Chris Hemsworth, we need to do comedy, tell them character to it, and it like they had a cast that was fit for it, and so he went for it.
They needed to revamp Thor so that he would be the central character that he deserves to be, because he's a fantastic character. So like in the previous movies, there are all the other side characters who are amazing. I'm not saying they're not great. I love them. However, Thor needs to be like a more central character, and I think a lot of Thor Ragnarok was him gaining back the confidence in himself and like kind of figuring out his place in the world and like realizing how powerful he can be personally. And I think he needed that massive shift of tone and everything from the past Thor films to like kind of get over that. And like the haircut and everything, like he needed a major redo, because I feel like many people didn't really like Thor prior to that. Like they thought he was okay, but like obviously like when you're comparing him to other characters, like, a lot of people like the other characters better. They thought the other movies were like better done. So I think he needed, and I think the massive influx of people who really enjoyed Thor Ragnarok shows how important like this movie was to his image and to how his character progressed, because now like Thor's like kind of this lighthearted guy and he understands more about Earth's cultures. You can see how he's grown from like the first film when he knew nothing, and now he's like super knowledgeable, and like now he's kind of like up with it and everything, and you can kind of see like his advancement, and you can see his and Loki's relationship and how like that has changed over time. And like there's that beautiful moment when they do like get help, and then like they betray each other, and fantastic.
Thor Ragnarok so much. I missed him.
Like, yes, and then like they use Jeff Goldblum, and I agree. I would have loved to see more of Jeff Goldblum, but honestly, like you got like you don't want too much, and I think they did like a perfect amount. And also going along with that, this isn't like part of the movie, but it's like part of the extras in the movie. So like I'm talking about it is the Team Thor YouTube videos / like extras from it. And he's like, why isn't Tony or Cap talking to me about they're having a war? And then Bruce is like, yeah, you know, I haven't heard about it. I don't know. And then like Tony calls him. He's like, yeah, sorry, I don't want to be a part of your war. Oh, Thor wants to talk to you. And he's like, how can he contact you? He's like, I don't have a cell phone. He's like, send a raven. Like, those are fantastic.
Yeah, you guys are so good.
When he's living with Daryl and he's like, just pay it with these coins. He's like, I can't use these. These aren't worth currency. Like, just, those are fantastic. They're some of my favorite things the MCU is, like, just like short things the MCU has done. They're phenomenal. I love them so much. They give so much humanity to Thor. And like when he's explaining the MCU, wow, I'm sorry I go on about this, but like, wow, those were phenomenal. No one talks about them, and they're just great. I've watched them so many times. They're hilarious. Going on to number 5. I have Spider-Man Far From Home. This movie was phenomenal. I think Jake Gyllenhaal does a fantastic job being Mysterio. He's just such a fantastic villain. Like I knew he was gonna be a bad guy. So like going into it, I was like, what's happening here? Like why?
He was marketed as a hero. Like he was marketed.
Yeah, I love the twist.
And then you're like, oh, he's kind of seeming like a good, and like that shift wow,
Yes.
what a fantastic
Yes.
job.
So good.
And how they even
I
referenced the
freaked
first
out.
movie. They referenced Iron Man in that movie, which I love.
Yeah, it was
I freaked out
phenomenal.
too when he was like in Civil War, like in the background, like seeing all the different people and where they fit into like
Yeah.
these facets. Like that was so cool.
Like we literally
Yeah,
pulled
it
out
was
all
so
our
cool to
DVDs
see how
and
they
tried to
did
find those
happen.
characters.
Yeah, and also just I think it was phenomenally done. I think he did get kind of what he wanted at the end. But okay, I'm assuming everyone has seen the movie, but
Yeah,
but like, if you're watching this, then you have. But in the end, when he reveals Peter's identity, okay, one gripe I had with the movie was I wanted the final post-credit scene to. I talked about this in my review, but I wanted the final post-credit scene to be Flash watching this because like there's the whole thing throughout where Flash is like loves Spider-Man and then he hates Peter. I wanted the end scene to be Flash reacting in some way to seeing that Peter is Spider-Man. I wanted him to be like, nope, and then just like go on like tweeting like, this can't be possible. Peter's a loser. Like, I love Spider-Man.
Yeah, because I was kind of annoyed at the like final end credit scene where you find out that Fury and Maria were like,
there's more to that. That's the problem.
Like,
they
what is
left us on such a cliffhanger. Like we want to know that.
I would have to look at the whole movie differently and be like, this isn't like. And then I'm like, but at what point was this Talos? Like, you know,
like
I was like, has he been that entire way through like Endgame? Like, like, I was like, I have questions.
Like, I have so many questions from that, and also just
we're gonna find out.
I really just wanted the final end credit scene to be like, I just wanted some reaction from Flash because after all of this happened, like that was the only thing I wanted at the end, and it didn't happen. Like I talked about this for a solid week. My parents were done hearing me talking about this. I was like, why didn't we get to see this scene with Flash? Like, I want Flash to see. Yeah, so I was bothered. If we don't see that in the next film, I am like suing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just hope we see it soon because this virus thing is killing me. I want to go see this.
I know everything's getting pushed back. It's so sad.
Yeah.
And then Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, it's so fun. It's
fun.
Just a great time. The way I think this kind of revamped how people look at soundtracks for movies. Like I always thought
soundtrack is good.
Really good. Like the Twilight movies, just going back, but like the Twilight movies, they had great soundtracks. I listen to those soundtracks all the time. They're phenomenal. But like going into Guardians of the Galaxy, I didn't know what to expect. Obviously, like as we kind of said, like I knew that they were like unknown characters, and I was like, this is really cool that they're bringing these unknown characters to the screen. Like no one really knows about them. So I thought it allowed them to like kind of do what they wanted with the characters, which is really fun. And I think they did a fantastic job. I love Chris Pratt with all my heart. I've loved him since I saw him in Parks and Rec. He's phenomenal. What a great actor. And I think he just does a great job bringing the character to life. And I think the way that they, as I said, kind of like brought in the music, that's like the soundtracks for both of the Guardians of the Galaxy films are iconic. I listen to them all the time. They bring in so many great songs. And like think about how you copyright for those songs, like that must cost them a lot of money, but it was like phenomenally done. Wow.
Right.
And then I had Iron Man. It started it all. It was phenomenal. So like what else can I say? Robert Downey Jr. is what a man. He is Iron Man.
Yeah.
He really is.
And number 2, I had Avengers. I believe this is so my parents don't like going to the movies. I really have forced them to go to movies so many times over the past many years. I believe Avengers was the first MCU film I actually saw in theaters. After that, I saw all of them in theaters because I was a big fan. But prior to that, I had seen all of them at home because we watched them on demand. And I think Avengers was the first one where I actually saw it in theaters. And I remember just standing there being like, I am so excited. All of these characters are coming together in this one movie. And my parents were like, okay, Bridget, we get it. And I was just like, they're all going to be in this one movie. And they're all going to be together. Like, we saw them in all those other movies. And like, look at them now. They're all going to be here. And like, that was such a cool concept. No one had done that before. Like, that's so cool that they're just going to bring it all together. And like,
I also think about like the shooting of the end credit scene, like with the swirl, like how that was shot, like right after the like how close to the premiere it was. Exactly. I was like, that was just a really like special time for the MCU.
Yeah,
exactly. And then my number 1 was Infinity War. It kind of goes along with what I said about Endgame. Like, they're both awesome. And I think kind of what you said is that they do a great job, like, establishing each of the characters and, like, giving each of the characters kind of an even amount of playing time on this screen and everything. And I think they do a great job of, like, mixing. Like, they have all of these different plot lines, and they bring them all together in this movie. And I think Endgame, they also do a phenomenal job of that. But in Infinity War, they really had the hard task of they all are coming from such different backgrounds. How do we get them all in one place? How do we get them to like kind of merge together, and like how do we get them to meet up and everything. And I think that was what was really fascinating to me, was how are these characters going to meet each other? Like, how are they going to be like, who's this and who's this? And like so many of those scenes were so fantastic. Like when they meet on the ship in space, and it's like Peter Quill and Spider-Man and Iron Man and Doctor Strange, and they're all like,
the dynamics of all these characters that never met each other before. Like,
that seeing them merge, it's fantastic.
Yeah, and the fight scene between all of them with Thanos.
Yeah.
Oh, it made me so angry.
So much.
I was like, Peter Quill, you're this close. Like, I mean, I feel like, you know, like I knew what was gonna happen going into that movie, but like I was still frustrated.
Yeah.
It
was so fantastic. Also, like that had never been done before. There were so many amazing actors in that film, like who had such strong roles in all the other films. And I remember going into that and like having the hype before that movie. And I remember just being like, how are they going to fit the names of all these people on the poster? Like how are they going to, got like 50 huge actors and they're going to put all of them on this one tiny poster. Like, how is that going to happen? I don't know. I just remember the hype for that was so strong. And like, I've gone on every Thursday night since then. And it is fantastic. Like, what an experience to watch the film with other people in the theater. Like, everyone is so passionate, and you just all have the same. You're all just like, oh my God, this happened and this happened. And I remember in Infinity War, like, people started dissolving, and I wasn't really understanding. I was like, whoa, hold on. And then, like, Spider-Man was disappearing. And he's like, I don't want to go. And, like, that called
too much.
And, like, I just started sobbing, and I sobbed the rest of the movie. And then I saw it again, like, a week later, and I sobbed again. And I, like...
It just gets you. It gets you.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, my God, he's going to die. And, like, just the fact that impact can still happen because of the story, like, that shows how well that they've built up the storyline and all of these characters to come together, and it's fantastic. So that's why it's number one. But yeah.
Okay.
So I guess so where do we go from here?
So that's the new question. Yes. So we have Black Widow, which was supposed to come out May 1st. It is now like question marks as to when it's gonna happen there. I mean, they're dropping Onward on Disney Plus tomorrow, which I'm so excited to finally get to watch it on Disney Plus because I haven't gotten to see it yet, and then I'm going to immediately go and watch it.
So fun. So fun.
So I'm excited for that. So there's that. So I'm like, could they do that with Black Widow? Who knows? I feel like it's a movie you need to see in theaters. I feel like Marvel movies, there's just an action, there's an excitement to them of seeing them in theaters. That like,
them with other people,
and I think we're starting to want like box office revenue for it, but I'm like, you could like, I'm like, is there a version where it's like you could release it in like on Disney Plus, have people see it, and then like I think I also saw Jay from this out like theaters is like something with like new stuff to get people to want to come out.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah,
I think that's smart. I like the idea of getting it like at the same time, so you don't have to wait for it because it is ready, and to like wait a whole another year for a movie that is ready.
Yeah,
like I think that'd be smart to get people to come out to theaters if there was like other content there that would like.
If they could do like kind of what Netflix does with like saying, oh, this many people have streamed it in opening weekend to kind of show like how many people have watched it and like to show.
Watch it for sure.
I mean, if you're seriously going to think that this is going to get more people to sign up for Disney Plus, I think that Disney is fooling themselves. If they really want to be smart about it during these times, you should not only put it onto Disney Plus, you should drop the Blu-ray on the exact same day, because then you'll definitely get box office revenues kinds of things. But anyone who Anyone who thinks they're not going to want to go see a movie on the big screen after we're finally all allowed to be free again outdoors, they're lying to themselves.
Yeah. So I think doing
being a spectacle, like a comic book movie or even an animated movie, you want to see those movies on the big screen. Come on.
Right.
No one's going to want to go and see. No one is going to be excited for Fast and the Furious 9 to be streaming. They want to see that movie on the big screen. Right. Nobody wants to see the new James Bond movie on a small screen. They want to go to the big screen to see it.
Right.
I want to go back to the movies.
Right. But there is the small screen that Marvel is now taking advantage of with Disney Plus. So there is
Yeah.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which was supposed to come out, I believe, in August later this year, which I'm so excited for. I'm excited for Zemo.
Yeah.
I love Sebastian. Like, I think the beautiful thing that I think is so great about this story is that it essentially came to be because Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie were paired together for Captain America and the Winter Soldier press, and it became like this buddy comedy thing. Like, we're gonna have a buddy comedy, and then Marvel did it, and now here we are.
They're like back and forth.
Marvel,
Marvel is so
like,
great.
We talk
It's
about
so
casting, but like Marvel also is great when it comes to like pairing actors together for like press stuff. They had Tom Holland and Benedict Cumberbatch together for Infinity War. Like they're just so good at it. When Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth were together for Age of Ultron, like. Oh, they're so good at it, and there's so many wonderful things that have come out of that. Like,
there's also,
you know,
and I'm really excited to see. I heard that there's going to be rumors that the villain is actually going to be the Red Hulk. So I'm really curious to see how that. All these shows are throwing in other Marvel characters, so I'm really excited. I mean, I won't be watching them on Disney Plus. Like, I'm sure I'll find out more about them. Honestly, I am very curious about WandaVision because I know that Molly was saying that she has not really been used that much. Well, if they are going to play their cards right after WandaVision, especially when Fantastic Four and the X-Men get into this, they should totally do this story called House of M. It starts actually. Yeah, it basically starts with a comic book story first called Avengers Disassembled, because one of the few things that we have to know about Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch, is she's a mutant. So that's a big thing that not that many people know that much about, because before Fox gave them X-Men, you couldn't say mutants in the Marvel movies.
Quicksilver.
So yeah, exactly. So
I'm wondering if they're gonna bring him back, because honestly, like,
you could potentially see him in like a flashback. Because my theory, like regarding WandaVision, is that like Vision isn't alive. Like, she's obviously hallucinating him. Like, I'm assuming she goes on some sort of trip and hallucinates Vision and their children and like everything. And because she has all this power, it creates the multiverse, and that's where we get into like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Magic. Which I wasn't a fan of the first Doctor Strange film. I'm not like a very sciencey person. I thought like it was visually stunning, but it just like for me like wasn't one of my favorite films. But Multiverse of Madness has levels to be like it could be like here if you're getting like Benedict Cumberbatch, Elizabeth Olsen, Tom Hiddleston, and you have like there was rumors that Sam Raimi would be directing that. Like, mind blown. Is he officially? Like, did he officially sign on?
Directing it.
Yes.
They were actually supposed to start filming it.
Awesome.
They were actually supposed to start filming this week. But it didn't happen. They're unfortunately pushing it back. But
I didn't realize he'd officially signed on. But like, because I heard rumors that it was potential, so that's amazing. Because Sam Raimi, like, oh my god, that movie's gonna be so good.
The thing about the Multiverse of Madness, the reason why Scarlet Witch would be such a pivotal piece of it is because of that story that I was saying earlier, House of M, because one of Wanda's powers is she has the ability to manipulate realities. And in the House of M, after she's basically trying to manipulate the Avengers and her father, just in case people out there don't know, her father is Magneto from X-Men. And basically she is just like really her powers is where she basically creates this alternate universe where every Marvel hero gets every desire that they ever wanted.
Ooh, interesting.
And the scary part is people in this universe are starting to wake up and realize, wait a minute, this is not right. I don't belong here. Imagine a world where Peter Parker married his first love and they have a baby. Imagine the fact that Captain America actually grew old with his war buddies and married Peggy Carter. Or how about the fact that the X-Men, meaning the mutants themselves, are more superior to humans and they're not hated in the world of humans.
So I don't know if they would exactly do that with WandaVision, but I think What If? That I think What If is going to be an area where they're just going to do lots of really, really fun stuff. And I'm excited for that because it's an animated series and like the voice acting will be fun. You have, I'm blanking on the actor, but I'm blanking on the actor's name, but he played Beetee in the Hunger Games franchise.
Jeffrey Wright.
Yes, he's going to
He's
be
in Westworld. I'm a big fan of that show.
So Jeffrey Wright is doing, I believe, voiceover for that show. He's so like him being a big part of that, which I was excited about. So I think that'll be fun. And I'm interested to see like what crazy stuff they get to do. Particularly, I'm excited for Captain Carter. I think that's going to be really, really fun. I'm excited for that episode.
I'm curious about Moon Knight and She-Hulk.
Yeah, those are things we're still. I think
there's rumors that Daniel Radcliffe might play Moon Knight. That would be really cool to see.
That would be. I'd be down for it. I would be down.
Some rumors that some of the old Marvel Netflix shows might actually be brought into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I would love that.
Rumors that Spider-Man is going to team up with Daredevil, and I would love to see that.
That would be really cool. Yeah.
Because the Kingpin is one of Spider-Man's nemesis as well.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see those
in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Kingpin. Yeah. He looks freaking weird, but like he's brought up there. Loki series, obviously we have to talk about that because it's Tom Hiddleston is Loki. I am so sad that this was like spring of 2021, like when it was first initially announced, because I was like, I need it now. But
I know. I'm like, it's so far away.
I mean, I think it's amazing because it really shows like the power. Like, here's this character that became this like that was like a villain. He was meant to be a villain. Like, I don't think anybody ever expected his character would be as like successful as he was. And now he has his own series. Tom Hiddleston is gonna shine. My hope is like theories as for now, like just loose ideas. I ideally somehow see like Loki has to end up in Love and Thunder in some way. Like, that's ultimately we have the Loki series, and then he somehow ends up in Love and Thunder because the sun has to shine on both of them again.
I'm so passionate.
I'm like, how that happens, I don't know. There are some people also talking about like the hammer, like Mjolnir, because Thor no longer has Mjolnir, right? Because Mjolnir was returned to the universe which it came from. So I'm like, does he somehow get Mjolnir back? He also has the Tesseract. So I'm like, the one that I flipped when there was a Super Bowl commercial for Disney Plus, and we got like all this footage from all different shows. And there was like, I wasn't expecting to get anything from the Loki series, but there was like a 2-second clip, and I was like, Loki can burn this place to the ground, and I will let him. Like, I was just so excited about it. And so, because what you get from that, I guess, is that he's in prison, right? Because he goes in that, like, he leaves, like, uses his magic in Endgame. He has the Tesseract. And so now let's, like, wormhole space. Like, we have no idea what he's doing. So, but he's also, you have to think about the fact that he's, like, Avengers Loki. Like, he's not, he hasn't run through, like, losing his mother, someone he's really, really close to, and, like, having to, like, fake his death, having to be the leader of Battlestar. You know, like, and so that I think is really interesting because I'm like, I want Ragnarok Loki back. Like, how are we going to get there? Like, he was like starting to be this good character. Like, we were starting to see. I mean, it makes me so mad though the way that the Russo brothers killed him off in Infinity War, because I was like, Loki's not dumb. Also, he wouldn't like go at Thanos with the butter knife.
You can't just. But also too, like, he went on that whole last press tour, and he only was in like 2 minutes of the movie. Like,
I was
wow,
like, what is this? It made me, I was so frustrated. I was like, why? He would not.
So dumb. As to kill him with it, like, he was like, yes, this tiny knife will be the thing to end him. That's how I'm going to, like, he's smarter than that. That's not how
exactly. I was like, he faked his death how many times? And you're telling me, like, I just, So I was not happy about that. But, like, I miss Ragnarok Loki. I just have so much hope that show is going to be good. They also, oh my gosh, who was in it? They got casted in that show that I was like, Owen Wilson. Owen Wilson, yes, is going to be in the Loki show. I was like, that's amazing, because they were in A Midnight in Paris together, which I like love that movie. Which, by the way, completely separate note, somebody needs to put together an F. Scott Fitzgerald biopic. Like, we need to make a movie about F. Scott Fitzgerald, and Tom Hiddleston needs to be F. Scott Fitzgerald, because he was F. Scott Fitzgerald in A Midnight in Paris, and we only got to see like that much of him, and I was like, I want a whole movie. Tom Hiddleston is F. Scott Fitzgerald. So that's a completely like different avenue, but like if we're talking about the two of those actors, I was like, I can't not bring that up. So
I agree.
So I have an idea about all of these movies, because now we're going to get phases 4, phases 5, possibly, and most likely phase 6, because there's all these great new characters that we're going to be able to play with. I have a great idea on how they can not just close the book on the whole story entirely, but then you can actually reboot it, which is actually kind of interesting. So when I was growing up, there was an excellent Marvel story. It was called Onslaught. I don't know if you guys have ever heard about it, but I'll give you guys the long and the short of it. It started a couple years before with an X-Men story called Fatal Attractions, where it was Magneto's big, full-blown, villainous, evil comeback, and all the mutants basically tried to defeat him. A couple of X-Men were almost killed, including Wolverine, which was sad. But what happened at the end was Professor X basically used his mind to basically suck all the evil out of Magneto's brain and basically turn him into a vegetable. A couple of years later, there's a crazy creature running around in the X-Men world, so much for the fact that it almost killed the Juggernaut. If you know who the Juggernaut is, he's a pretty strong dude. And he keeps saying, onslaught's coming, onslaught's coming. We find out that this villain is Professor X. Because of the absorbing of the villainy that he got from Magneto, he became this omnipotent, unstoppable force, and the X-Men couldn't defeat him on his own. So they had to get the Avengers. They had to get the Fantastic Four. They had to get every Marvel hero and even some of the villains joined in on this fight to try and take this creature down, because it was no longer Professor X. It was this villainous force. And what he tried to do was he tried to get the son of Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman, because he has the ability to create universes. Very powerful. And so through that, he was basically going to create something within his image and destroy everything else. Basically something that Thanos would do, but even worse. So they managed to break the armor of Onslaught, meaning all the heroes that you could possibly imagine, and now Onslaught is just pure, unadulterated energy. The son of Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman creates a brand new universe and says, you have to jump into this portal and cultivate this new universe, otherwise we're all going to die, and we're going to be ceasing to exist. And then the Avengers jump in, the Fantastic Four jump in, and for some strange reason, I don't know why, but Spider-Man does and the X-Men do not. And it turns out that after that whole story ends, there was a story called Heroes Reborn, and basically all the big stories were told over again. And people really thought that that was a crazy story because it was so large, it was so vast, it had so many characters in it, it could be like 2 or 3 movies. And I just think if you think that Endgame was a crazy final battle, I can only imagine what it's like to see all the Avengers, all the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, every possible hero you could possibly imagine facing this unstoppable force. To me, I think that that would just be the greatest way to conclude a vast comic book universe and have it continue on in a whole new way afterwards.
I think you also have to think about the Eternals, because that movie is supposed to be coming out in November. Who knows, though, if that'll get pushed back, because ideally I think they probably want Black Widow to come out before they do the Eternals. Yeah. So, like, this is things. But the Eternals are like these Captain Marvel level heroes that they're
cosmics, yes. Cosmic beings.
So, like, I think that's going to be interesting, because obviously there's a lot of people who had thoughts on Captain Marvel in terms of, like, her, like, abilities and how, like, strong she was, like, particularly after her own film, like, what you see of her in Endgame. And so now to have, like, a whole other group of characters, too, who have, like, those same abilities that are just, like, really, like, I think that'll be interesting to see how that plays into the MCU, because I don't know how I'm feeling about, like, I was looking at what they announced for, like, at Comic-Con, and I was like, I don't know how I feel about the Eternals. Like, I'm interested to see what's done there. I'm interested to see what's done with Shang-Chi. So there was, like, some, like, movies in there that I was like, I don't know, like, how, but I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity to bring a lot of new people into the game. Yeah, potential. And I just, like, don't know what to think about
the Cosmic Universe. Yeah. They've already said that the Cosmic Universe is such a vast place in Marvel, and there's so many characters that you can bring in. I mean, obviously, once the Fantastic Four gets into this world, you're going to see so many creatures and characters that are just as powerful as the Asgardians, just as powerful as the Eternals. Like I was saying when you unfortunately were having difficulties, the Fantastic Four story, the coming of Galactus, the World Eater, he is just like one of the deadliest, most omnipotent. He's more powerful than Thanos. He's just a beast in the world of comic books. And with Captain Marvel's story just scratching the surface on the Kree versus Skrull war, that's a whole other story in itself. It could lead to the story called Secret Invasion, which is something that a lot of people are thinking that could possibly happen. There can also be Secret Wars. Secret Wars was actually how the world got introduced to Miles Morales, and I said to people that after Tom Holland had played Spider-Man for so many years, if he would pass on the torch to a young actor playing Miles Morales, that would just be a beautiful thing to see, just to see these characters continue to pass the torch as the story keeps moving forward. But don't even get me started on where we would go with the X-Men. There's so many.
An idea for the Fantastic Four. Hear me out. Chris Evans redeems his role as Human Torch because he's done like Captain America. Captain America is old now, so now he could just be the.
I love him as the Human Torch.
He looks a whole lot like Captain America, doesn't he? Yeah, that's crazy.
When they were saying the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, with those Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, some people think that that's how we're going to see the Fantastic Four and the X-Men come into this world, because they're from different universes. And I don't know about you all, but I would love to see Sophie Turner come back to play Jean Grey, Ty Sheridan come back to play Cyclops. They're already asking Patrick Stewart.
Peter's back as Quicksilver. I'm here for it.
I just want to see all of these other characters for 20 years. I cannot get over the fact that this year is the 20th anniversary of X-Men with Hugh, when we all discovered who Hugh Jackman was. Wow.
I love
so many things.
I'm seeing him in October, November.
Are you seeing him in Music Man?
I am.
I wanted to see him when he was on tour. He did like his tour, and I think he was performing Greatest Showman stuff and Broadway stuff, and I wanted to see him.
I remember that. I wanted to go see it, but I couldn't. But I saw him in a coffee shop in New York when I was about to go see the Lightning Thief musical. Fun fact, we went to a Starbucks, and then we sat down, and my dad was like, that's Hugh Jackman. And we were like, no, it's not.
I would have lost my mind. I love him. I love Hugh Jackman.
We didn't want to disrupt him. So we didn't want to be like, oh my God, hey, what's up? So we didn't bother him. But I'm really excited to get a picture.
That's amazing.
Honestly, when they bring Fantastic Four into this world, because I'm so glad to know that Mark Ruffalo is still attached to the Marvel. I want Hulk versus Thing. Hulk versus Thing.
I'm so happy.
A big comic book staple. I would love to see those two characters go against it. And also, for the love of God, make things CGI. He has to be CGI.
Yeah. Just thought about it.
I want to see those two go head to head. That would awesome. If they brought Michael Chiklis back, I'd love that too.
It's C2E2, and I think they were asking him about She-Hulk, and I don't think he'd officially signed on, but I think very shortly after the news came out that he had. So maybe he wasn't saying anything yet because it wasn't officially released and he was signed on at the time. But either way, I'm psyched that he's going to be a part of She-Hulk. That's going to be fun. To quickly wrap up, other things we haven't talked about. Black Panther, I guess these are just like a few passing things before we wrap up. Black Panther 2, I think we kind of hit on that a little bit. Like, Chadwick Boseman, I feel like has been a little bit flaky. Like, I thought there was some like talks of like Shuri potentially taking over for Black Panther, which I'd be all down for that. If he was just like, I don't want to, like, I did my time. Like, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Yeah, I mean, but who knows if he doesn't want to do it. I mean, I don't know. I like some things I heard recently were kind of weird, but who knows? Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, aka as Guardians of the Galaxy.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, I want that so badly. You don't even know.
I'd love to see more of that.
As Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the search for Gamora. Or where's Gamora? Why Gamora?
Why is Gamora?
No, it's Guardians of the. It says Guardians of the Galaxy. Why is Gamora?
Yeah, exactly. Why is Gamora? Because like that was exactly how Endgame ends. Like, exactly. Like that's exactly what's happening there. I'm excited for that. And then Captain Marvel.
That he was signed on to direct again. What's his face?
Signed on.
James Gunn.
James Gunn. Yeah.
I'm so glad that they got him back because like he's the only one who knows how to do those stories, right? Like, he did a fantastic job with the first two. Like, he deserves to do the third one.
For sure. And then Captain Marvel 2, we haven't really talked about that. I feel like we're sort of foreshadowing the beginning of Captain Marvel 2 with the end credit scene in Far From Home.
Again. That's what it is.
I was like with like Fury being on the ship, I was like, okay, so this is like how we're beginning Captain Marvel 2. But it's also like we're not going to get to that for a while because these films, I don't think they're even officially a part of Phase 4. So I'm like, because that's one of the things that frustrates me. But we have a lot of like interesting stuff coming at us. Like 2021 is going to be a huge year, and I think I knew that going into 2020, but I think like now that we're in the state that we're in, where like so many things are getting pushed back to 2021. Like 2021 is going to be like off the hook. Like it's going to be like the amount of like crazy stuff that we're going to be getting. It's going to be a very, very fun time. But for now, we need to get through this and persevere. I guess before we wrap up, there's something that you wanted to talk about, Steve, related to the comic book industry and sort of supporting independent businesses, which I think is important.
Yes. So last week there was a big announcement which kind of scared a lot of people. One thing that I didn't know was the fact that all the major comic book labels are under only one distributor named Diamond Distributors. They're based out on the East Coast. Last week they announced that we are officially stopping taking orders from all the major comic labels. So basically, while all the comic book stores were going to be closing for a little while, a lot of them are still doing discreet curbside pickups, because if it's just one person sitting in that store and willing to take orders over the phone, just like sending mail or just like dropping them off in someone's car if they just drive by, you know, it's not the right thing to do right now. But unfortunately, there's not been much for the comic book stores to stay afloat right now, and it's really, really sad. So with no new Marvel comics coming in, no new DC, no new Image, no new Boom comics, it was a very, very scary thing to hear. But at the same point in time, it was positive because this was a very expensive bill for the comic book stores. So if they're not really making that much money now because the customers aren't coming in, then not having to pay this bill is somewhat decent, sort of a silver lining, if you will. However, there's a little bit of news, and we're going to get a little bit more later on next week. There's a comic book app called Comic Hub that is trying to work out a deal with all the major comic labels, and here's how they do this. They are basically going to try and see any comic book store around the world that they're connected to this app. A customer will call them up and say, I'd like the newest issue of Batman, please. So they buy the comic book and they get a digital code. You get the digital code and you can basically upload it and you can read a digital copy if you want to read the comic right now, because they're not getting the prints. However, if you bought that digital code, when the doors are officially allowed to open again and the comic book industry is allowed to distribute again, you will have a physical copy of said comic book waiting for you. And since you already paid for your digital copy, you get your physical copy for free. This is a great way for the comic book industry to distribute their books. This is a great way for the comic book stores to stay in business, because if people know 11% of the comic book population that are readers only reads digital. Everyone else loves their physical. I love my physical. I'll never go digital with comics. To know that I can get these digital codes now for the sake of getting my physical books later, my local comic shops will have my business during this time. And I think that I'm just praying that the companies are going to be on board for this, and that the comic book stores will be on board for this. Also, I think that this should be something that bookstores should try and do too, if they can. Some kind of a digital purchasing, and get your physical copy when you're able.
Yeah, that'd be really
cool.
Good idea.
I think it's a great idea. I hope it works. I really, really do. Okay.
Yeah. So I thought this question was fun. I don't know if you guys hit on this, but if there's a zombie apocalypse, you can have one. Okay, so I thought this question was fun, so I think we can end on this. So there's a zombie apocalypse, and you can have one Marvel character with you. Who do you pick?
Probably Blade.
Interesting. Okay. Bridget, you?
You go first. I will just think.
I'm like thinking and I'm like, God. I'm thinking about like Vision being like almighty and powerful. Like I feel like that it could be, but I mean, I watched the way Vision was in Infinity War, and that was rough. Like Vision in Infinity War felt rough for me. I don't know if anyone else felt that. Like during the moment when like Cap came in, I was like, Would you want Thor? I'm like thinking what's the most practical. Like if there's a zombie apocalypse, like realistically I want Captain America with me, but I don't necessarily think he's gonna be like the most practical character like in that situation. So I'm like, that's not a smart choice.
You gotta go with a character that's somewhat in that universe. You gotta go with someone like Blade or Morbius or Ghost Rider or one of those undead characters.
I would do because I've been watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They had Ghost Rider.
Robbie Riss. Robbie Riss.
I wouldn't mind hanging out with Robbie Reyes if it meant hanging out with the rest of the S.H.I.E.L.D. team. That would be fun.
Fair. Maybe Wanda, because she just seems super powerful, so she could like just deal with everything, and I'd just be here like, you go, girl, you got this.
Yeah. Captain Marvel is also that type of powerful. I could see her.
Yeah.
Definitely work.
Jeff Goldblum. I want Jeff Goldblum with me. Jeff Goldblum could entertain me until the end.
Yeah.
He's the Grandmaster. Because apparently, like, he's powerful. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like maybe the Grandmaster has powers, things we don't know about. He was a comic relief character.
Just
maybe
got like sick and then just
that's how it starts. And then playing and the screaming and I'm sorry, I'm trying to do a Jeff Goldblum impression. It's not working.
I love Jeff Goldblum so much. Okay. Well, that was fun. Okay. So I think that's about it for this live show. It was a little bit long, but I think we had lots of fun discussion. Started off a little bit rough with technical difficulties and things. But thank you all for joining us and sticking along for this ride. 'Twas fun. I feel like I want to go and like go into my room and like get a snack and just like start watching a Marvel movie. Like I'm like into it.
I have plans already. I am excited.
So
I gotta go read some comic books.
Yes. So thank you all so much for joining. As of right now, the next live show I have planned is for April 13th, and I have some lovely guests that'll be joining me, and more info will be coming on that soon. I'm taking this next week off because it's my first week starting up with college classes again, and so I want to be able to get back into a schedule and sort of like figure that out. Also, it's Holy Week, so like I feel like it's gonna be like this first like coming back like into classes and everything. I want some time to figure out my schedule and things before I start doing live shows again. So apologies there, but thank you all so much for watching, for sticking with us through this. Thank you to Steve and Bridget and joining me, and for Rachel as well, and for all of you lovely people who were watching. I really, really appreciate it. It was fun to get to talk all things Marvel with you, because I wanted to make a video where I like broke all this down, but I was like, there's just too much discussion, and I feel like it's more fun to do with other people to get to like trade your thoughts back and forth. So this was fun. I'm glad we finally got to do this. Make sure like you support independent businesses when you can, comic books. I thank you, Steve, for telling us about that. I thought that was really interesting. So make sure you're doing that. Make sure you're taking care of yourself, washing your hands, staying healthy, making sure you're going out for like a walk, you're getting some fresh air, you're like staying safe, and you're paying attention to the news, but not too much. You know, you're doing what you need to do to take care of yourself. It's a big thing. Okay. So on that note, have a wonderful night, and I will see you next time with another episode of BookTube Live. Goodbye.
Bye.